Actually, I think I'm going to remove. All right.
That better?
Yeah. Hey guys, we're just going to give it a few more minutes for those that have joined already. We'll start in just a couple minutes. If anybody wants to grab a drink or a snack or watch funny cat videos.
Funny cat videos are awesome. And right now, too, the meme game under this quarantine is super strong. You know, I'm very proud of everybody's creativeness out there in the internet. Tiger King, one of my favorites.
I've not seen that. I don't really know too much about it.
I heard a clip about that on the Rogan podcast, and the guy was just gushing about it, saying it was amazing.
Is it a Netflix thing?
Beautiful. It's a Netflix series that I think they maybe just saved it for this type of situation where everyone's at home and going crazy.
Right.
And it's like, look, your life is not that bad. Look at these people. It's fantastic. Everyone should watch it. You're going to feel great about yourself. Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard a lot of bad things about it. Hey, Mom. All right. We'll get one more minute and we'll get going.
Okay.
I'm just getting myself a refreshment.
Cool.
All right.
Now on my side, Jason, I can't see any questions or comments.
You can't. Okay.
So if there's anything that I need to know, if you want to just let me know.
All right.
And I'll speak to it if somebody asks a question that you want me to address.
Okay. Yep. I will pull things up. All right.
I got to tell you, I'm pretty jealous of McFly's chair there.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet with a pillow and all. Actually, I've got a better chair next to me. I don't know why I'm sitting in this old crappy chair that I'm in.
I got to thank my buddy Wes for that. I got it for free $50 when he moved. I helped him. He's like, I'm not bringing that with me. It's yours.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started.
Great.
Flip chairs here. All right, everybody. As you probably know, I'm Jason, Colorado Mountain Man Survival. I brought in Brendan. He's a good friend of mine. We've known each other for at least a week.
Yeah.
Brendan came out to one of my initial classes, but I knew him before that. It probably was 2014, 2015, somewhere in there. But Brendan is Marines, U.S. Marines. But I just brought him in today to talk about home defense. If you want, give a little spiel about yourself and then go ahead and do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. He started in security. Actually, I was 15 years old and working in a gypsum plant outside Bakersfield, California. Working graveyard. It was awesome. So did security, started a security company. This was all while in high school. Went in the Marine Corps, did 8 years there as infantry, and then moved into the armory after that. Then I went into retail sporting goods and had 10 years there doing firearms training. Got schooled up myself and then helped with the training as far as handguns and rifles and tactical rifles and sniper training and home defense and so on and so forth, edge weapons. And then it basically stayed in either the homesteading, prepping, tactical training world in one way or another, trying to make money. And so that's where we're at now. So been doing this for quite a while. Not claiming to be, an expert on any particular topic, just sharing what I've found or what I've learned. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of other people that have a ton of education and a ton of great ideas that can contribute as well.
All right. Go ahead and where do you want to start out? We yesterday we were out at a friend's house and we shot a little bit of video and we took some pictures so that we can kind of give you all visuals of what we're talking about. But do you want me to go and pull up some pictures of the house or?
Yeah, sure. You could go through some outer houses. So when it comes to home defense for me, I think of it as 4 stages, and then I'll go over them individually for you. But one thing to remember is every house is different. Every property is different. The potential threats you're facing are going to be different. So I can just generally go over things that are somewhat universal, and just please understand your situation may be different, or your friend's situation, or example you're going to bring up what may work, it may not work. I understand that, and that's totally cool. And you're going to have to customize your plan for your property. And again, the threat, are we worried about the average burglar coming in, or are we worried about actual forces breaking into your house during a zombie apocalypse? There are different scenarios, different security. But just with that in mind, just know these are kind of generic ideas, and you're going to have to research and do some fine tuning for your own situation.
And just to add to that real quick, everything's going to change according to your level of training also.
Absolutely. Great point. And your experience with, a little bit later on when I get into physical deterrence, less lethal and lethal, that's going to very much depend on your training. So 4 stages I'm looking at is, first thing I'm going to consider is the outer perimeter. So it'd be kind of like if you're looking at the house from the street, so to speak. Some good ideas there are going to be wide open spaces where you can actually see. Not a lot of bushes or very dense trees. They're great. I love it being in Colorado, but get it away from the house as much as you can so you can see people. Trim trees up so they can't sneak up underneath them and have some concealment or even cover at that point. So wide open spaces so you can see out and see any bad guys prowling around. Also, it helps with your neighbors. They can see people prowling around.
Uh-oh.
I think I lost you, Brennan.
Okay, I wasn't worried. It might have just been me. Yeah, timeout. Well, while we're waiting for him to come back in, though, I'll interject, though, and piggyback on what he was saying about clearing brush out. I don't know if I might have missed what he said, but that also makes a lot of sense for wildfire mitigation. You're not only is it home security, but it's also, keeping your property more safe if there is a fire that comes through, because sadly we have had them here in Colorado more often than we'd like. So.
Wait a second, I'll try to get him back in here.
Yep.
Oh, I got it. All right, got you back.
Sweet. Sorry about that.
No, that's good.
That's
All
the
right.
internet. Where'd I lose y'all?
Pretty much from pretty close to
Clearing
the
out the
beginning.
brush.
Yeah,
Yeah,
clearing out
clearing out
brush.
brush, for security and for your
Okay,
neighbors.
cool. Right. So clearing that out, I think at this point, and a lot of these different layers of defense do kind of overlap, just so you know. But another thing here is fencing, gates around the property. I think that's nice. I think it's a deterrent. There are some burglars that look at that and think that it's going to be you're protecting something basically, which you are, but it's going to have more of them, as far as their psychology. Just so you guys are aware, but I still think it's a great idea. I know whenever I go up to properties, especially out in the country, and they have a fence or a gate, obviously I'm sitting back and calling my friends to see if they can let me in. So the average dude walking down the street isn't going to come up and start knocking on your door and peeping through windows, right?
Well, and then what would you say about if people are going to do that, also putting up some dog signs like "Beware of dog," even if they don't have one? Would you consider that a good idea?
Absolutely, yeah. I think anything when it comes when we harden our properties, if we think humans are going to want the path of least resistance, just by nature, right? So if we make our property look very hardened, very defensible, they're just going to move on. A bad guy is going to go for an easier target, one that he could just walk right up and he could look through the windows. There's no lights, there's no security signs, there's no dogs, anything like that you can do to make your property look less appealing, harder for them to deal with, I think is a great idea. Dog signs are great. Big dogs are great. Obviously, a big security dog that's scary and barking and looks aggressive, no one's coming on that property unless they know them. Smaller dogs, even hunting dogs and whatnot, family pets, at least if they're making noise, it's hopefully going to deter anybody from coming on the property, because then they're also worried about, they're getting the neighbor's attention or they're getting the homeowner's attention, that type of thing.
My cousin has two little chihuahuas down in Arizona. They don't live in a great part of town. We tried to introduce his one called Taz to my dog, and I got lit up in the process. So I'm still healing up. Even though they're small, they do bite. So
Right. Right. And then at that point, if it's us, it's like, no, forget this. I'm going to that empty looking house, where no one's home and no dogs, no fence, no nothing. So the also part of, like, we consider stage one, the outer perimeter, the security lights, I think, are fantastic on all four sides. And those could be on timers. Those can be, used with the light, as far as coming on automatically type light, and or just on and off. And I say keep them on at night. I don't think it's going to cost too terribly much for the family budget to
especially if you
help
get like
keep
LED
safe.
or something. Yeah.
Right, something super affordable. So lights are great. The security signs, and specifically if people can find them, if they have a security company that specifically is connected to law enforcement, that's fantastic. Have the signs out, have the stickers out. Also, something people forget is to do it on the back of the house. Have stickers and signs on the back, because depending on your particular house layout, from a burglar standpoint, a lot of times they're going to approach from the rear.
Yeah.
So they're not out in front of the house.
Well, I tell you, anybody that comes through the rear of my house is going to get a striker right up the butt. So,
Right.
Nobody's hopping my fence with a striker roaming around back there,
No, it's not going to work out well at all.
No.
Right.
But I do have I want to show a short clip, once I can find it here, of the outside of my house. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Just a small section of it. So, you're talking about perimeters. lighting.
Mhm.
Pull it up here.
Security signs.
Right.
Mhm.
So I have the security signs I haven't pulled up, but this is the man door in my garage. I have, we'll stop right there. I've got outdoor lighting, motion sensors. You see a security camera. This is a blind side of my house. If somebody were to hide, they could hide in there, but I can see them. And I have reinforced that door from the inside. You can't tell from there. But when I moved into this home, that door had been kicked in. So I put this up there. And then going around to the front of the garage, sorry, let me pull this over here. I have security cameras on the front of the garage as well. And these are high quality cameras. I can see basically the letters on packaging at the street level. So if you pull up, I can read your license plate. I can read probably your ID if you're holding it in your hand. And they are also up to 35 feet, their color. So I can see everything in color up to 35 feet at night. And they're infrared, so you can see in the dark. But also right here's what I want to show you. That light, while it looks like a typical light, it is a motion sensor light, so that people moving around can see. So you don't have to sacrifice the looks of your house for a big, ugly motion sensor light. You can see something, that's a little bit pretty, I guess. So motion sensor lights don't have to be big and ugly like that first light that I showed you. But we'll go
Yeah, it
ahead.
doesn't have to be like a spotlight or a floodlight necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, great point. And it is a lovely light.
It is a lovely light.
It's great.
My wife picked that one out, so it had to be lovely.
Obviously.
Actually, she's
Right.
the one that put that one up there. But anyways, moving on.
Naturally. On the point of the camera, I really like the idea where Jason has a lot of cameras and a lot of different angles, and they're high, and it's going to avoid a lot of damage depending on the height of the tools. Potentially, it will protect against people just knocking them down or moving them.
Right. Well, those are the three that you saw. I do have 8 cameras on my property, so and
right.
most of you don't even know they're there.
That's sweet. That's sweet. Another cool hint on that, I would suggest, at least at the doors. Again, I like the perimeter idea, having them high all the way around, and you're recording, anyone coming and going, hopefully even before, if they were to mess with them, the ones they could see. But around the doors, I would recommend, if you can, putting a camera low, actually like at average face level, maybe like 5'8", 5'9", that type of thing, instead of way up in the corner. Because a popular tactic is guys are just rolling with a hoodie and a baseball cap, keeping their head down, going up and checking the doors.
Right. Those I forget what they're called, but the doorbell.
Ring doorbell.
Ring doorbell things. Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
Ring. Those things are great.
My only issue with those is they share a lot of your info with other companies that aggregate a lot of your stuff. So
right.
You do research on a product before you buy it and see what's getting shared with who and why and when.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely, it's an interesting time where cellular and wireless has a big benefit because it's not getting cut at the side of the house, kind of a deal.
Right.
Then on the flip side now, we have with hackers and whatnot, are we compromising our information? Are we being spied on?
Right.
Almost for a different purpose, not necessarily that they're attacking the house, but more coming after you or your information,
right.
that type of thing. So yeah, definitely you're going to have to make the best decision for your family and kind of pick your poison, so to speak. But yeah, that was just a really good tip that I learned actually from a 20-year burglar. Was he said if he walks up, he's checking out the house from the front or the back, and he sees a camera at head level, he just keeps going because he knows his face is going to get recorded before he can even mess with it. So on that one particularly, you could have it low, have lights on it, that kind of thing, so it looks active. He was also mentioning the security signs. making sure they're current. In some places, you actually have to post a permit on your window, like an alarm permit kind of thing. Make sure that's current. Make sure the stickers are newer looking, not completely faded, that they're from 20 years ago.
Right.
The sign's nice and new. And he was mentioning, and this very familiar for me, is people will often sign up for a promotion and they get security for 1 year. And then they just, don't renew at that point. And so the system's not active anymore, but they still kind of have the signs and everything.
Right.
He goes, so that's pretty common. And we're actually going to assume they don't have an alarm active if the stickers and the signs and everything look old and tattered.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. And again, even just like the dog signs, if you order them from some online source or local store, hardware store, whatnot, Lowe's and Home Depot, and they all have security signs. So just get what you can, and again, don't forget the back, because a lot of times they're casing your house from the back of the house. Let's see, what else is a good thing. So then we start talking. Now we've kind of moved up to the house itself, and some things to consider is, there's really nice, beautiful glass doors. They look great, and I completely understand them. But anything that's clear, you're kind of opening yourself up a little bit for people looking through the windows, looking through the doors, the windows next to the doors, if they're clear. If they can see from the front of your house all the way to the back of your house, and we have some sample photos we set up to show this.
So here's a front door that we were working with.
Right. So you can see that our friend here has windows on the side, which lets in light, which is awesome, but they're actually frosted. So you can't see in. It's just letting light through, and it's a nice looking feature. But it's not going to help out the bad guys at all. And if they can't see in, they're a little bit more hesitant, because they really don't know if somebody's home, if they're just hanging out, if they're watching TV. They're ignoring the door because they're like, I don't want to get bothered by somebody that's going around trying to sell something. So the bad guys want to be able to see in the house. So the more you could prevent that, the better. Again, obviously, it's a little bit of a fine balance with wanting natural light coming in your house and enjoying yourself. So just something to be aware of. Maybe it's something you do when you leave. Leave the house, make sure you close all the windows up. At night, definitely close all the windows up, because you can't see out, but they can see in. Another great feature of the door here is the actual security gate. So the front door can be open. It does have its own deadbolt, and I don't think we have a close-up of it.
No, I mean, I can kind of zoom in here, but it's not very clear. But yeah, that's a nice solid door, that security door. You can't tell, but there's the bars in here, and then in between it is all mesh. So the bad guy cannot reach through those bars. It is heavy-duty mesh, and then the lock is solid. It's just not a crappy little screen door lock. It's just a whole new deadbolt and lock with the key. So, that's very solid door right there that somebody can't get through, even if you got the main door open.
Right. And a killer feature too is it actually has a plate that goes over where the latches are. There. And so for anybody wedging something in, like a little crowbar,
right,
or a big flat tip screwdriver or something, you can't get in there to pry at anything. Obviously people can pick locks if they're skilled, burglar and all that. Again, you can't keep everybody out all the time, but we're doing the best we can, kind of a deal, to protect yourself, and even just deter makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with having that plate and that extender over there. And something that people ought to figure out too is whether you have to have a locksmith come look at it or not, because I do have some locksmithing experience, is a lot of your strikes on your doors, they'll have a little bar on the back side of it. If that is not depressed or undepressed, depending on the model, that depending on what position that little additional latch piece is, it'll actually prevent it. So you can't like just jimmy a credit card in there. It prevent that exact kind of a thing. So some latches and some strikes have little security measures, but if someone has installed it incorrectly and it's over closing, or they've egged out the strike plate too much to where that safety feature isn't working quite right, you might have to kind of check that and see what your individual door, how it's set up and if it's set up properly.
Yeah, that's a great point. Another thing I like to do with the doors is if you could have the kind of the physical wraparound, if it makes sense, if you don't have the cover, anything to reinforce that structure there where somebody may boot it. Super common tactic is people will just walk up and kick the door, literally, like Hollywood movies.
Yeah.
And they're in your house in 1 second. It doesn't take that much effort to break the door body itself, where a lot of the short little screws are.
I've actually got a video on that too. Go ahead and talk. I'm going to pull this up here in a second.
Right. Yeah. So just like Jason will show you, one thing I did, and I'm in a rental right now, and so a lot of times we don't want to do a lot to rentals.
Right.
But a cheap thing to do is you could go to the hardware store and you could buy thicker plates, both on the door side and on the frame side. I put through like 4-inch star screws and through the hinges, just like he's showing you right there.
Yeah, so
that would be my recommendation as well, as putting long screws in there, because if you're just anchoring into the door frame, a standard door frame is only about yay big, and then the meat that's holding the latch in is only about yay big. So someone's just going to kick it, knock the screws out. If you can actually get through into like the stud framing members on the other side of that door frame, you're going to be a lot better off for sure.
Yeah, so I removed this screw on my door here, and you can see that screw is probably maybe an inch. Pull it out so quick, but I believe I've got a 3-inch screw that I put in its place. And watch when I drill that in here. See how long that screw is? Watch how that door sucks down in. You can see it tightening up. See that whole frame tighten up? Yeah, you replace every screw in your door frame with a 3-inch screw, and somebody kicking in your door, they're going to have one hell of a time. So yeah,
as long as the door is also up to snuff, you won't
right.
Your hollow core doors that are usually on the internals, they're practically made out of cardboard. In some cases, they literally are cardboard. So you have to make sure your door is rated
and hollow.
As well.
But I want to show you the inside of my house too. This is the other side of that door. You see where that molding is. Somebody had actually kicked in the door before I moved in, and it broke off the frame. So instead of just putting a normal trim back up, I replaced all that wood, reinforced it, and then that plate that you see there is actually a metal plate, and it's screwed in there solid. So the deadbolt goes right through that. Not only is this all solid screws through there, but that metal plate makes it so that deadbolt in there, somebody's going to have to knock out that entire wall in order to get through that door. So just reinforce your doors if you can.
Yeah, it's a really fast, simple, affordable thing you could do. And again, like in my case right now, being in a rental, it was worth it, I think, for all new thicker steel latches, one of the little chain pieces at the top so I could open it, see who's out there, but have a little bit of security. And I got a heavy duty one. The screws, it was with one screwdriver, maybe half an hour, and like $25.
Right.
But it reinforces that whole door from getting kicked in. So that's an easy, cheap thing that everyone should just do.
Yeah, a box of screws will cost you about what, $12 for a good sized box. It'll probably do more than every door in your house. Yeah.
But
Right.
I was also going to say
Right.
too is people need to stay away from those like the quick change, like you can program the lock and change the key and all that stuff. Those things, a
Oh,
lot
right.
of those are just gimmicks. They're super easy to break into. And there was actually even a website where a locksmith was selling the tool where you literally just stick it in and just torque it and just pop it right off, kind of a thing to show people. I mean,
Oh, gotcha. Right.
so
Right.
it's yeah. Be picky about your doorknobs and your locking hardware. But even then, I mean,
Mhm.
a lock only keeps out a half honest thief, but it helps. It goes a long way. I mean, I've picked cheap Walmart lock sets with like a hairpin and like the little thing off of a pen, the little clip. I mean, in about 2 or 3 seconds, my friend kept locking himself out, so they'd always call me, and I'd come over there and just wiggle it. Essentially, the thing would just pop open.
Yeah,
So
you'd be amazed what you
Oh,
can
right.
unlock with a little bit of practice and a decent lock picking set.
yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
All right, let's go ahead and move on.
Absolutely.
I want to show this window real quick. So, you know, not everybody wants to put bars on their windows, but you can do something kind of nice and fancy like this because, you know, windows are really easy to get through. Granted, this is probably a pretty pricey thing, but, you know, if you're really in an area where you're worried about break-ins, bars over your windows is definitely a way to go. But
Mhm.
just want to throw that out
I
there.
agree. And on that note, you know, if you're in a position to have an official alarm system, it's highly recommended that even if you have to pay a little bit extra, but to have the sensors in your house that will actually go off with loud noises. Speaking of windows, you know, again, if people a lot of times they'll break windows and go through that way versus the doors because they know the doors are hooked up to alarms, but often the windows aren't. So they'll break the window, but if you have a sensor in there for that sound, then that will also trigger the alarm. And another thing to that note, even if you have to pay a little bit extra, and I know times are tight, but actually installing a horn, you know, a big loud horn, I think is a good idea. It could be debated, you know, no, you want to let them in there and then hopefully the cops show up and arrest them. I can understand that perspective. But again, I'm trying to scare him off and versus hope that he gets arrested while he's leaving with all my stuff, or he's attacked, you know, my family, depending on what, you know, the objective is for that particular bad guy.
Yeah, that saying is that, you know, when seconds count, the cops are only minutes away.
Right. Yeah. And something to be aware of too is, and again, it's a family decision, but big dog doors. You know, I like being here in Colorado and the weather changes rapidly. I like the idea that, you know, my dogs can go in and out. So I put a big door for them to get into the garage. And then the garage door into the house is then reinforced like we explained. And so that lets them get in and out. But it doesn't allow bad guys to sneak into the house. You know, maybe the dogs are not there that day. Maybe they're asleep. Maybe they're with you. But if you have the big dog door that goes into the kitchen, you're kind of opening yourself up there a little bit. So that's just something to be aware of. So, you know, again, a bunch of different things you could do for the outside to harden it. And I'm sure there's a million great ideas that other people can contribute. But moving forward, then I want to have a plan, just like any other emergency. So whether it's a fire or earthquake or zombies. So have a little plan like, hey, you know, we hear that crash in the night. What do you want to do with your family? Where do you want to go? Your layout of your house and where the kids' bedrooms are and whatnot. You know, you're going to have to come up with your own plan. I can't really tell you what to do there, but come up with a plan, casually discuss it, not to freak out the family, you know, at dinner, that kind of thing. And just, you know, hey, we're going to shelter in place. Mom's going to be doing this. Dad's going to be doing that. So everybody kind of knows where people are going to be. You know, kids, just stay in your room. You're going to hide in your closet or hide under your bed, whatever you come up with, what you think's best. What I don't suggest initially, you hear a crash, you hear the door kick in, potentially the audible alarm goes off. Whatever way you find out through your measures that somebody's in the house. This is really, really hard for dudes. But I don't recommend going hunting for the bad guys. At least not initially. Okay, so, and I know we want to do it, but tactically speaking, it's not a great idea. You're in the dark. You don't know where they are. You don't know how many there are. You don't know their state of mind, if they're on drugs, if they have weapons or not. You know, there's just so many variables that we don't know. And so the safest thing to do, and we got to swallow our pride for a minute, is to post up, and during your plan, you create what we would call a fatal funnel. And that's where you're going to get yourself into a position where you have a vantage point. It's very narrow, and there's only really one way in and one way out. And you're posted up watching what's going on. If you're alone, I recommend you being on your cell phone with 911. Otherwise, you could have a significant other on their phone calling 911, and they're sheltered in place. And you go to that spot that you can easily get to from your bedroom, where you have that fatal funnel. So as they're cruising around and they're looking for jewelry or cash or whatever else, if they step into that place, you could see them, you could catch them off guard. If you have stairs, you know, which we could show you some examples there. If you're at the top of the stairs, you have an advantage that way of having the higher ground. And I recommend, you know, depending on what happens, the situation and people screaming and who knows what, right? But let's just say you think it's a bump. You don't really know what's going on. Maybe you hear a little scurrying, maybe you don't. I mean, stay there for a while. Stay there for an uncomfortable amount of time, 10, 15 minutes, you know, and by then, depending on where you live, you know, the police should be there. They should have responded by now. Hopefully the bad guys did go away and you're safe, your family's safe. If they did steal the TV, well, you could replace it, but at least you're not having to deal with any issues with confrontation or injuries or legal battles later, that sort of thing.
Do you want me to go ahead and play?
Yeah. Let's show
All right.
example of a friend here.
Can you actually? Somebody's got their mic real close to their speaker. Maybe it was Matt. I don't know. But anyways, Matt's back. I'll pull him in. We do have a video of our friend in our home with the fatal funnel. Before I show these videos, keep in mind that our actress in this all this is not tactically trained. She's going to be moving like most people do, your typical person with a little bit of guidance. So critique it all you want. We're going to try to critique her videos, her actions through this video, but realize she is not tactically trained. She's taking the best direction she can from us for her first time going through this. So anyways, here she is at the top of the steps. There's her fatal funnel, if you want to go and talk about that.
So real great thing about that is she's in the dark, and so she has a wall for a little bit of cover and concealment. It's also dark up there, so it's hard to see her. She's crouched down in a good stable position. In this example,
sorry, I forgot to share the screen here. Let me.
Oh, no worries.
That probably helps everybody a little bit more to see what we're talking about. There you go.
Right. So as you can see, a good example there. And you could do this in a one story in a hallway. It's the exact same thing. But when the bad guy steps out, there's only one place they could be, and now you have the advantage because you're hiding in place. So there's actually a couple levels going on here. One, she has a flashlight that can be used to, you're letting the bad guy know, hey, I know you're here. Hopefully that's enough to deter him. There's a strobe feature on that particular one that's just kind of handy for disorienting, especially if we consider, most of the time it's going to be at night. So you're going to blind them, disorient them. You're going to see what they're doing with their hands. That's going to kind of help you identify what the threat level is at that point. And she also has, by choice, with proper training, she does have a firearm that if it was a bad guy that was trying to do bodily harm versus just say a burglar, then, she could fire at that point. And there's not a lot of places for, the Snoopy wearing bad guy to go. So she's got, a really good, safe position at that point. And again, hopefully, just most burglary situations, they're not there for confrontation. So they're going to run. If they are there for confrontation and they know you're there and they start coming up the stairs or down the hallway for you, then, well, they kind of made the decision for you that you're going to have to step it up and go to a different action to stop and save yourself and save your family potentially. Firearms can be controversial and it could be a liability, and there's legal issues afterwards and a million different opinions. And I understand that, and feel free to comment and throw out your 2 cents.
Well, I mean, my only comment is going to be that, Colorado, we have a stand your ground law or make my day law or castle law or whatever you want to call it. So if somebody's entering your home and you're in fear for your life, you are legally able to shoot. Not all states are like that. So know your laws, know what's going to happen. And if you do shoot somebody, the cops show up, don't say anything. Ask for an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Just
that was
right, absolutely.
That was gonna be my 2 cents, was the fact that you need to know the laws for the state and everything that you're in, because I think I'd read a thing where what's his face, the Blade Runner in South Africa, he shot his girlfriend through the door. I don't think in America that you're allowed to do that. I don't know if that's America-wide or if it's a state.
You cannot shoot through a door. No,
right.
It is illegal.
So
even in Colorado, it's illegal to shoot through a door. That person has to be coming in the door.
Right, and that's all I was trying to say, is that there is a lot more to people. I think some people that don't know about guns and all this, they just think, oh yeah, you get a gun and then people are just trigger happy and they shoot and it's no big deal. You go on with your life. If you're forced to actually use your gun in self-defense, you get ready for the lawsuits, get ready for all kinds of stuff, and
you will be arrested.
They make firearm owner insurance specifically for that, specifically designed to protect people that choose to protect themselves with the Second Amendment, which I fully support. I'm not all trying to poo-poo it, but there's a lot more to it than just getting a gun and pulling the trigger. You need to educate yourself. You need to train yourself and get training and be proficient with the tool that you pick.
100%. Yeah, I completely agree. Another cool thing when you're looking at that scenario with the fatal funnel, if try to do it as best you can with the layout of your property, but so in this case, for this home, there's no bedrooms or anything at the other end of your fatal funnel where you expect the bad guy to come from. So speaking of, shooting through doors and shooting through walls, do your best, or maybe don't even shoot if you can't do this, but you got to know the background and you got to know what's behind it.
The backstop.
In that case, it's going downhill. It's going to go through the front door and into the porch. So the backdrop is extremely safe, where you're not worried about shooting somebody else in your house.
Yeah, and I was going to ask that question. Are we going to go over reasons why someone may or may not want a particular firearm platform, like shotgun versus AR versus pistol?
Gotcha. Yeah, since you brought that up, it's a good time. Kind of as a general rule, and there's going to be plenty of debate when it comes to guns. It's very Ford and Chevy, if you guys don't know. But as a general rule, if you're thinking about safety and where you're going to shoot and not shoot in your house, know that if the rounds can go through a person, they're going to go through your walls. And some people may say, well, you just get birdshot for your shotgun.
Mm.
However, I know personally that birdshot, 7.5 shot in a shotgun at the range that you're working with in a house, is you're going to be super close up. It will go through drywall. Maybe some studs will catch some of the BBs, but
Yeah,
it's going through
but
drywall.
I wasn't trying to say that birdshot is not fatal, and that's the whole Chappelle thing, birdshot, buckshot, birdshot. But
Right.
back home in Alaska, I grew up with people saying, "Oh yeah, you can shoot bears with we have really big brown bears. You can shoot bears with birdshot. It don't hurt them. It just stings them." And every year there'd be at least one wounded bear running around. There was actually one that died, and if I can't remember exactly what it was, they pulled like 23 or 24 birdshot pellets out of this bear, and one had managed to finally penetrate a lung and did kill the animal. So birdshot is fatal. It just may not be as fatal as quickly as you want it to be as a home defense round.
Right.
But yeah,
That's a great point.
yeah. But I
Well, it
agree with
depends
you.
on how
And
They
close
all
that
need to
person
be
is.
respected for sure. I mean, don't underestimate it just because it's birdshot.
no, and hopefully again through if you have the firearm, you're going to train with it. You're going to take it to the range, and I recommend shooting it with different loads at different distances. But
Absolutely.
you'll quickly see again with birdshot at a standard home around here. I mean, 10 yards maybe is kind of the space you have to work with. And even with birdshot in yards, you have a group about like this.
Mhm.
It doesn't spread super huge until you get out a little bit further because it's designed, for quail that are flying at 25 yards. So it's still pretty dang tight, at least a lot of the rounds or the BBs. And that also brings up another point. There's kind of a misconception that, well, you could just get a shotgun and stick it out the door and just kind of point it and press the trigger. And unfortunately, that's 100% inaccurate. Again, at these distances that we're dealing with in our homes, you do need to aim. You do need to use that front side of that front bead or an optic or whatever you have on your particular equipment.
Yeah.
Because
And for
they
the
are
people,
still fairly accurate.
yeah, and I was saying, and for the people that aren't super familiar with that kind of stuff, like a lot of people, they call it patterning. And a particular gun actually has preferences, just like people, on like what kind of food it likes. Each, even like the exact same, type of bird shot, number, the size of the shell and the number of pellets and all that may behave differently between brands in the same gun with the same barrel. So you need to pick whatever you're going to use and then take it out and shoot it at different ranges to figure out what it does, because you may have a nice tight group with like federal flight control or something like that, and if you switch over to some other brand, you may have all kinds of stuff with a couple of flyers that go off all over the paper. You need to figure out what your gun likes if you're choosing the shotgun. But there's some truth to that too, I think, for handgun rounds as well. I mean, it's certain rounds shoot a little bit differently in your gun. So pick your platform, pick your ammo, and then go test it and practice how you're going to play, as it were, play.
Mm-hmm.
But so you
Right.
understand
No.
exactly where stuff is going to go and where it's going to end up.
I just want to throw it. Justin threw out there that a 22 is fatal, but not always proficient. So basically, what that means is you are probably going to kill somebody with a small round like a 22, but it's not going to be immediate. They're probably going to bleed out more than they are going to just fall on the ground in front of you. So really, if you're looking for home defense, you're probably looking for something that has stopping power, but preferably stopping power at a short distance. So it's not going to go through 10 walls and end up in your neighbor's house, but that's really hard to find a weapon that does that.
If everyone can see that pretty well, I've got 22 on this end here. I've got 9 mil.
Hold on just a second.
Yep. Yeah, so this is 22 now, 22 long rifle. This is 9mm. This is 45 Colt, and you can kind of see the difference there. I've also got, this is 12 gauge, 12 gauge double aught, or no, this is number 4 buck, but you can see there's a huge amount of variation, and so that's why it's important for you to figure out what gun you want to use and to become proficient with said gun.
Yeah, good point. All right.
Right.
So we got about 8 minutes, Brendan. So you want to go on
Okay.
into some of these? Well, let's.
Yep. So again, on the firearms note, me personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I feel that as long as you have the training, and this kind of just goes for all of them, right? Universal rule. But
Yes.
if you have the training, I prefer a shotgun for home
Okay.
defense.
Yeah.
I think you're very stable. It's a lot easier to shoot. It's a lot easier to aim and control with a shotgun than it is, say, a handgun. You can use it as a physical weapon to smack somebody if you need to in a sort of a less lethal thing before it goes to the next level. There's an intimidation factor of it when people see it. There's an intimidation factor for when people hear it.
When they hear it.
Right? It's a
Right.
pretty unique sound that I think almost everybody knows. And again, if they're just a burglar, they're going to leave. You know, they're just there for some stuff, you know, and then they could go sell it and buy some drugs, right? If it's a real bad guy that's there to do bodily harm, okay, well, now you've racked it. Now you're ready to fight. And you can take care of that problem. So there's a lot of different shot options. It's a great tool just to have anyway. Then you could take it out. You could hunt with it. You could target shoot with it. Works, you know, you could put slugs in it. You could reach out if you needed to, say in a real bad situation, and you put a slug through an engine block of a vehicle that's approaching your house rapidly. You know, again, this is not a burglar situation. This is a little bit more advanced, bad world case. But you throw a slug in there, you could take out a vehicle, you could punch through windshields, you could take down an elk or a bear, you know, you could go get birds, you could take out people, it's just so versatile that if you're going to have one firearm, I highly recommend a shotgun and have that ready to go next to the bed and whatever way you want to store it, that you choose to store it for your family.
I do have a question from somebody real quick, and I can probably answer it, and then you guys can add to it if you have anything. But Becca asked, can anyone settle the 22 bounce around in the skull and scramble the brains thing? Had no idea it was so hotly debated. I can't really speak to going in through the skull. Well, I guess I kind of can. It depends on the range. But I'll talk about 2 situations that I know about. One is very unfortunate, and I really, you know, it's kind of a sad situation. But when I was in high school, we had one of my classmates. She became pregnant. Her boyfriend left. Her mom kicked her out of the house. She became depressed, took that 22 pistol and was going to use it to kill the baby. And she shot herself in the stomach. The bullet hit a rib and ricocheted inside of her chest cavity and just ricocheted all through her internal organs and killed her. So the 22 shell will in fact ricochet off of bones inside you and kill you. My second example is one of my friends. He was actually up in Denver walking down the street at some point in the day, and he heard a pop behind him, didn't think nothing of it, kept walking, and he felt moisture on his forehead. So he reached up and touched his forehead, and he had blood on his hand. Didn't know what was going on. He started feeling pain on the back of his head. He reached back and touched the back of his head. He had blood on his hand. So what had happened is somebody had fired a 22 shell at him from whatever range and actually hit him in the back of the head, went underneath the skin, traveled up over top of his head, didn't actually penetrate his skull, stayed underneath the skin, so between the skin and the bone, and came out his forehead. 22 shells are very weird. If you shoot them into water, they can ricochet in any direction. They might go into the water. They might come directly back at you. So 22 shells absolutely do ricochet all over the place. They're very unpredictable. One minute they could go through your skull. The next minute they could bounce and around all over the place. So there's my input on that. You have anything to add?
I was going to say, I mean,
No.
that's not, I mean, that is mainly true of 22, but it's also capable, it's possible with other rounds. I think a lot of it has to do with how the round itself is designed. Like, for instance, again, I've just got your standard little 22 with nothing fancy in it because you're usually using this for plinking. There's no polymer, nothing on it. You can get hollow point 22.
Right.
I don't know how well it actually works versus rounds that are actually formulated for self-defense, that are formulated to impact, to mushroom, to transfer the force, and that kind of a stuff. But I mean, 22 can be deadly. I mean, absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But in my opinion, the smaller the round you go with, the more precise you have to be with shot placement, but you want to be precise anyways. Stray rounds that aren't hitting the target aren't going to do you any good, no matter how big or small the bullet is going to be. But all bullets are capable of that, but I do think that 22 is a bit more notorious because it's not under a ton. It's not under as much, I should say it's not under as much force and speed, and it doesn't have as much mass behind it as your other stuff. And they're usually not formulated to be like a self-defense hollow point round, which may contribute to the ricochet, the tumble, and that kind of stuff. So,
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think there is also a place for rifles, tactical rifles. I believe in that as well. So kind of like the different layers of defense that we talked about for the home, I would then, if I'm comfortable with firearms and if I choose to have that as part of my family plan, then I could almost envision a different tool for those different zones, so to speak, or you could think about it similar. So I could have, for example, like an M4 AR type rifle, and that's for bad guys that are out at the street shooting at me in their vehicle. So I have a little bit more distance, and it's a little bit more devastating, so to speak.
All right. So,
My primary in the home is going to be my shotgun, like I mentioned. And then I'm also a fan of having a handgun for that kind of last resort, in close tool that you'd use at that point. And then also that's basically what we have to, if we do choose to carry a firearm out in the world, that's where handguns come into play, because we can't carry a shotgun, or at least it's just really inconvenient at the grocery store.
OJ, I think that answered your question.
Yeah, but just, and handguns, if people haven't trained a lot or look at a lot of tests and whatnot, it is not John Wick style. And I think maybe statistics have changed slightly with modern ammunition, but as of about 6 years ago, I was looking at some FBI statistics, and 7% of people that are shot with handguns die. 7%. So it's really low, actually. So again, going to the shotgun with the different shells that you've tried out, when it comes to stopping the target, I'm not saying you want to kill people, but you want to stop them, and that seems to be the most effective that I'm aware of.
Do you want to move on to this video with
absolutely
entering the door? Okay, so we're going to play a video here real quick and critique this video. I know we're past time, so we'll try to move along pretty quick. But I know you're not going to be able to hear the video in the movie, but we got our perpetrator knocking on the door. Homeowner comes and answers the door. Notice she does not have a peephole in her door. So she has to, if she wants to know what was out there, she has to open the door to see who's out there. That's the flaw of her whole setup. He's overly trying to convince her to get in the door. She's telling him, no, go away. Very important thing she says right here is, my husband is sleeping up here, upstairs. I don't want to wake him. She's going to say that to protect herself, whether she's home or not. Or sorry, whether there's a person at home or not, because typically you got a bad guy that wants to come in. He hears there's a male in the house. He may not potentially want to come in. Brendan is playing a super bad guy that really wants to get in. He doesn't care that the husband's home. because he's probably up to no good. She recognizes that he wants to come in and is forcefully trying to come in, so she's arguing with him here.
Right there, she's doing a great job at not letting me see a lot of what else is going on in the house and in the room. And she's being polite at first and then stepping up her assertiveness as I was stepping up my aggressiveness. She was matching me and not cowering down, which was a fantastic move, showing that she wasn't afraid, which I think is great. And that deterrent, right there is like, okay, this isn't going to be a pushover. This person has some confidence and isn't just going to let me have my way, essentially, which was fantastic how she handled that.
Yeah, but you continue to be forceful and not leave it.
Right. So I stepped up the verbal, started to get, not quite offensive, but definitely more forceful. And so at that point, when the person's not listening to the order, she stepped up her aggressiveness to match, then she grabbed the firearm at that point, racked it. Again, like we were talking about earlier, that sound is very distinctive. It's very intimidating. And just let me know she had it right there and she meant business. And that was enough to get me to leave. Now, in this first scenario here, from, just for you guys' knowledge and a tactical point of view, she's going to stay close to the door, rack it, because that's where the gun was. That's where we're having our conversation. Then we have another version that we will show you where we actually have her pick it up, rack it, and step back and present at me, which is, tactically a little bit better, especially if at that point I'm that aggressive, I'm going to pull out a weapon or something like that. She's ready to rock and roll. And she is, at least in Colorado, she has that legal right at that point, because she is fearing for her life to point the firearm at me. So she did really good. You could also see in the second version we did, she has her cell phone and she walked up talking on it, whether she's talking on it or not, just like the alarm signs and the dog signs, whether there's a husband there or not. She was showing me that she was on the phone with somebody. There, she's pointing at me, the hands go up. I'm like, all right, I'm out. I'm again going for a softer target. At that point, I'm not messing with this house and not coming back. But she had her cell phone out, so I'm of the belief that she's on the phone with somebody. So there's other people hearing, there's other people that could call the cops. It's being potentially recorded. And again, you could fake it if you need to. But you could also call 911 if you had to. That would be great.
You're fuzzing out real bad if you can hear me, at least on my end.
Yeah, I can hear him all right.
Okay, it might just be me then.
Yeah, so
go ahead.
Having the phone is a great tactic, both actually using it and even just pretending. Being loud and verbal about it. In this case, she's posted up and she's waited her 10, 15 minutes after hearing the bump in the dark. She's been on the phone with 911. Now she's speaking out loud just in case there is somebody down there. And at this point, she needs to go down, see what the noise was. Hasn't heard anything since. Maybe it was just the cat that knocked something off the counter, right? But she took her time. Now she's going to go and look. But she's talking loud, letting, if there is a bad guy there, know that she's on the phone with the police. The police are on their way, so on and so forth.
Now she does come down. She does come down the steps, and you will see her make a few mistakes. But again, she's not tactically trained. She's moving like the typical person's going to be. Before we get going, RJ did say that guns should be loaded. The firearm could jam while racking it. That's absolutely true. Typically everybody that's familiar with firearms and comfortable with firearms, their weapons are around the house. They are loaded. Everybody in the household knows firearm safety, knows how to address that properly. But there are people that are slightly uncomfortable with having loaded firearms around. So, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I do agree with RJ. If you're going to have a firearm and you're going to intend to use it, it should be a loaded firearm. And even if it's not loaded, when you pick that firearm up, you always assume that it is loaded. All right, I'll keep moving on here. So that's what I'm going to say is her first mistake, sticking that gun barrel over the railing without really being able to see what's beneath her or below her.
Mm-hmm.
And then she turns and does the same thing on this side.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I can critique all I want from, you know, the armchair warrior here, but notice she does kick something on the floor there. We'll show you what that is here in a minute, but she's checking to make sure it's still there. And she checked the door handles to make sure they're locked. You have anything else to add, Brendan?
Just that, you know, that's one of those deals where, again, it's going to depend on your skills and your house and your layout. She's got a killer fatal funnel there. But it does become tricky when you're coming down to clear it like that. So that's something you're going to want to practice and figure out the best way for you to move through your house and clear your house again after that long period of time. From a quick firearms handling standpoint, you know, she did that so you guys could see it. We could discuss it, that the weapon's being shown, but she can't see and it could be grabbed and yada, yada. So basically you could just choke it up at that point to go around and look and clear. And so where you're looking, the barrel of the firearm's looking, and that you try to do that the best you can. So just choke up the long gun if that's what you have as your tool in that scenario, and that'll be tactically a little bit safer.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to this little contraption she's got in the door. This little thing can be found in Radio Shack, probably online. I don't think I've ever seen it in store. Sorry, a little double video here. But it basically looks like a door jamb. It's got a switch on it. You can't hear it, but as soon as that door hits that trigger right there, I can hear it in my headset, but you just can't hear it through here. But it is wailing a very loud alarm. And it is a deterrent.
Yeah, it's a good deterrent there. Nice thing with that, again, we were talking about, say, rental properties. There may be rules where you can't put in alarm systems and big audible horns and the things like that. So reinforcing the locks, hey, that's just a donation to the owners. But go ahead and do that. It's cheap. And then they have those little portable pressure alarms. So you can still put those by the front door, by the back door, and you're gonna have a warning somebody came in, and hopefully it's gonna scare them off right from the get. And I think that one I bought was maybe $12, you know. So again, pretty low investment that you can do to help out, even if you're in a rental property. And it's not a bad idea for even if it is your house and maybe you just don't have an alarm, you know, big wailing alarm system at that point. You can at least get something like that affordable now and go ahead and use it.
Do you have anything else to add? I mean, we're at the end of our videos, except for your little final scene.
Kind of going backwards, just an easy thing I think a lot of people know. But you can also go in cheap apartment or your home or rental, whatever. Go ahead and cut out wooden dowels. I think that's always a really good idea. Simple, cheap wooden dowels. At a lot of the hardware stores, they'll cut them for you if you don't have saws and equipment like that. But you measure the distance however your window opens, whether it's up or down, side to side. Measure the distance. Go get, say, a 1-inch couple of those dowels, have them cut, and slip them in there. Super cheap, super helpful for people that want to pop those windows off. I know from little time helping out in construction projects on the homestead, it's super easy to pop out windows, modern vinyl windows.
Yeah.
You know, so anything like that that prevents a lot of play and gives them an advantage to mess with them and get through them Not to say again they won't just break it and go through it, but we're doing the best we can, right? We add as many layers of protection as we can to cover 99% of the scenarios. There's also little nice affordable wedges you could put up underneath like door handles and things like that to wedge the door to help reinforce it. I think those are fine. So just do what you can to harden your property, and you could be creative and you could do it affordably. And then a quick note, if it comes up on less lethal, what people would often call less lethal, it's a tough one. I think there's a place for less lethal things, say like stun guns, and they have some little guns that actually shoot out wires with prongs and attach to people and can shock them. Things like that, I think, are kind of neat and cool, and it's great. You don't maybe have to kill somebody, but you do have to train a lot with them, and that's hard to do because usually after the first time, your friends won't let you shock them anymore. When it comes to say like those little guns that shoot out, the top of the line one, say that a lot of law enforcement, you'll see it on their non-gun side. It has a 3-foot spread at 7 feet, which is almost, reach out and touch you kind of distance, and it spreads out 3 feet, and it's going to be really easy for one to miss. If they have a puffy jacket, it won't stick, it won't activate. So if that's your primary tool to save your life, I think you're kind of setting yourself up for potentially getting hurt.
Well,
so,
and I was going to say, I actually heard a bit on the radio, and people should research themselves. I'm not 100% sure on this, but if the prongs aren't far enough apart, the taser doesn't work properly either, because you're not arcing across enough
to
of the
travel
for it to work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right. It's kind of like they're kind of cool. They're kind of neat. Again, nobody, unless you're a psycho, wants to kill people. But maybe just the technology isn't there yet. I don't know. Maybe in 20 years we'll have cool incapacitating lasers or something that civilians could have. For right now, though, I would really think long and hard about some of those less lethal options. They could be intimidating, which is again great. Hopefully, you don't have to use them. That's great. But if that's what you're using to protect your life and the life of your family, I would strongly consider some other options.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else to add?
I don't think so. I'm sure there's a million things we could add and I could have said.
I'll stay real quick.
Any comments or thoughts that come in on the live feed, or when you subscribe to Jason's YouTube channel, you can make comments on there and other suggestions to help out. And again, remember, when we're armchair quarterbacking and fighting over 9mm versus 45 or shotgun versus handgun, every scenario is different. All the training's different. Everyone's house is different. Figure out what works best for you, especially, and when it comes to guns. And again, people Ford and Chevy you all day long, but if it's a quality gun and it fits your hand, it's a good gun. Mm-hmm. And if you are on a really tight budget and you've been laid off for the last 3 weeks, but you want something and somewhere you could still find a handgun, you know what? A $99 handgun is better than a Stern look. So
the best gun in the world is the one you've got on you.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, any comments or any other ideas that will help the community as a whole, I would definitely appreciate to see any good ideas people have out there.
And I know we didn't have, we went over a little bit, but we only scheduled for an hour to talk about a subject that we could probably teach for days. So we just kind of barely touched on the surface of all this. But right after this, as soon as we close this down, we're going to go start talking about survival kits. So if you're here for that, just hang out for a few more minutes and we'll get going. You have anything else, last minute bit of info? No? All right, well.
Be aware of what's going on. Know your neighbors. talk to them, be nice, have neighborhood watches,
Definitely.
have barbecues, and you guys help each other out. Have them pick up your mail and your newspapers when you're gone. That's a good idea. But thank you for about the subject. I really appreciate it. And thanks very much to our friend that let us roll through and film some videos in her place. And hopefully it helps everybody out. Oh, yeah. Bad guys are weird. Bad guys are weird. Absolutely. You got to look out for people wearing Snoopy. There's nothing right about that guy. I guarantee it. You're welcome. You're welcome, ladies. Stay safe.
Just buying time. I mean, there's nothing that's ever really impregnable, but it's just any amount of time you can buy to slow someone down. I think the average thief is not there to they don't want to stick around. They want to get in, grab the stuff, get out, and be gone. That doesn't apply to the people that want to break in and take hostages and stuff like that. But I mean, you gotta that whole problem unto itself if you got that kind of person sticking around. Did we lose Brendan? I guess it didn't do me much good to asking that.
Oh no, yeah. So I had you both dropped out, so I didn't hear any.
Oh,
I
okay.
heard about the last 15 seconds of what you said. So what was your question?
No, I was just going to comment that I was going to ask him if he agreed or disagreed that essentially everything you're doing to harden your home is just a matter of buying time, whether it's a few seconds, a few minutes. I mean, because the average thief isn't going to want to just hang out. I mean, they're there to smash and grab, get the stuff, get out, and be gone before the cops show up. So even if it's not bulletproof, it's not a fortress. If you can buy time and slow them down and just make it more trouble than it's worth, that's definitely worth investing in, I think.
Absolutely. And so a burglar on average is in the home for 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay.
That's it. But they want to avoid being noticed when they're casing the place. They want to avoid any loud sounds or anything that's going to draw attention to them. And when they get in, they're going to primarily, for everyone's knowledge, the first place they're typically going to go is the master bedroom. They're going to typically go to what they assume is the jewelry area of the female's side of the room. They're going to go for her jewelry. They're going to scrounge around some drawers in the closet for cash. They may go to traditionally, and again, maybe this is all sexist, but I'm just telling you what burglars have told me. They're going to go to the closet, typically on the men's side, and try to find a gun safe. And if it's a small one, they may even just take it with them and deal with the locks there. But that's it, and they don't have time to sit there and dig and dig and dig. If a good suggestion with jewelry, obviously, if you have your daily stuff, it's going to be kind of handy, but maybe you put it in a different room. And if you have heirloom stuff from grandma and grandpa and things like that, you're not putting it on daily, stash it, hide it. You're not dealing with it. Why lose it? You can't ever get it back. So mix it in with tools in the toolbox out in the garage. Put it in the shelves in the garage. Put stuff up in the attic, because exactly to your point, they're not going to take the time to dig around and look through every single box and look through every single shelf. They're looking for easy targets and fast money. So they're going to get in, grab what they can find, and get out. There is a tactic that I could prescribe to also, which is you could even have stuff for them to steal, just to satiate them and stop them from looking. So if you have cheap costume jewelry, if you really are worried about this, if you're super conscious about this, if it's important to you, set up, have $50 sitting out there. Have, gold coins that are $1 each. But it looks fancy, and they get to grab something and go, and they're going to go freaking buy drugs with it. They're not of the right mindset. So just giving them something may be enough, and then they stay away from your real important good stuff. Again, we're kind of thinking it. You got to think a little bit in the mind of the bad guy, and a lot of them are just desperate, on drugs, messed up, and so how are you going to mitigate your loss and your risk?
And I will say too that actually that does apply for food preps and stuff as well. If you are unable to leave your home and all that, sometimes it's better to don't have everything in the pantry, have some of your stuff really well hidden, and just leave a little bit out. So when someone comes in, breaks in, they get something, and they won't stick around to keep digging. They may think that's all you've got, and they're more likely to probably just leave you, quote unquote, crying by the broken down door and just take off versus really ransacking the house and getting all the goods. So decoy stuff is a good idea for a lot of things.
Decoy stuff. Perfect word. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, guys. Sorry to cut you off, but we're going to go ahead and end this here and go into the survival kit and get home bag. Brendan, thanks for joining us.
Very cool.
I'll see
All right.
you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
I'll see you when I see you.
Be safe.
Take care, brother.
Bye-bye.
All right, so we are going to move on to the survival kits and the get home bags. I got the same kits that I had from a couple weeks ago. We're going to go over those. Matt has got a kit together. I believe we'll try to show his as well if we run out of time. I'm going to burn through this really fast. I'm going to, try to just go through each item. As I'm bringing them out there, you guys if you got a question, be quick on the trigger finger. Ask questions as we go, and I'll take time to answer it. But first, I'm going to talk about real quick an everyday carry. Everybody's everyday carry is different. I'm typically going to one of my very first things I got on me right now. I talked about this a lot. Or I always have a way to start a fire, and I've got a knife sharpener on me. So these are little ferro rods. This is a ceramic striker. So I can make a little hard to do right here, but. Yeah, anyways, I can start a fire with this right here. If I can make a spark, I can make a fire, and then I got my knife sharpener. Also on me, that's a part of my everyday carry. I don't have anything in it right now, but typically if I'm in a situation where I am worried about me getting robbed, or if I'm worried about stuff getting stolen, I've got a stash cap. Don't mind the nice hairdo I got going on here. So inside this stash cap, it's got pockets, and inside those pockets, I can keep like my ID, put them in my hat, just like that. So now if my wallet gets stolen, at least I have my ID, and I got a credit card in here. Also, with the times the way they are right now, potential National Guard coming out to block things off, keep people, potential looters. During the Black Forest fire that we had out here and the Wattle Canyon fire, National Guard was out here, and you were not allowed to. Was sexy, wasn't it, Jonathan? Anyways, you weren't allowed to get through the roadblocks if you didn't belong there. So in my stash cap, I'm going to have something on me. My ID usually, but your ID doesn't always have your correct address on it if it's not current. But you can have your vehicle registration or a bill or whatever. That should be in your wallet or in your stash cap or in your bug out bag, your get home bag. Some way to identify that you actually belong to where you're going. I also typically have a knife. So, my knife changes according to my situation I'm in. That's just to show you that I pretty much always have a knife of some sort on me. A lot of people carry, Matt's always got one. And then, conceal carry or whatever. I'm not going to show you firearms. It doesn't really matter what I carry. But, that's part of your everyday carry. Most people have coins, change for a payphone, maybe $20 worth of cash or something. That should be part of your everyday carry too, just in case you need to have cash to pay for something. Just don't use that cash on a typical basis, just having the wallet. Everybody usually has a cell phone these days, great for calling for emergencies, great for GPS. I mean, you all know this uses for cell phones, but I also carry a backup battery at all times with me so that my battery dies, I can still call for help with my backup battery. So that's really, a lot of people carry a multi-tool for an everyday carry. I don't. Mine is attached to my kit. That's really basic everyday carry. EDC, if you see the acronym for it. Matt, do you have anything else that you have on an EDC that I didn't talk about?
No, yeah, I mean, ferro rod, knife, always make fire, some chapstick, wallet. I always carry a little flashlight with me.
Right.
I really like these ones from Streamlight. They get really, really bright. It just runs off of one little AAA battery. They're waterproof. This particular one has got multiple modes. So I've got extra bright. I've got it's kind of hard to get it to select. I've got the strobe, and then I've also got dim, a dimmer version to save battery.
Right. Yeah, I've got a small flashlight too, but I keep it in my kit. Or usually in my truck, my vehicle, I usually have a headlamp that sits on my console, my center console that's always there. And there's usually also in my vehicle traveling, I always have blankets, sleeping bags, something like that. I always have an extra pair of boots. I always usually have another knife in there. My truck I've got a full vehicle kit. Actually, I've got 2 vehicle kits. One kit that's just specific for vehicles. It's got like fix-a-flat, jumper cables, street road flares. I got a pump, an air pump, everything that you could think of that you need to fix your vehicle. I got a tool kit. It's in one bag. The other bag that I keep in my kit has got extra survival gear, whether it's food, emergency water filters, more knives, hand warmers, fire starting material, everything that you can think of for survival gear is also in my truck at all times. But we're not going to go into that. I'm just going to talk about from here on out what I carry in my get home bags, or I loosely call it a bug out bag. I don't really like the term bug out bags anymore. It's just a survival kit and a get home bag. Most people's bug out bags weigh between 55 and 75 pounds, and they're damn near impossible for people to carry. So I've slimmed my kit down to match my training, my skills. I could go out there and survive with just a knife. I've got the training to do that, but why would I want to? We're a modern society. We got plenty of modern gear. All that gear just makes my life easier. I'm not going to just realistically go out there with a knife, even though I can. So Becca, I carry a small pouch with a trauma pack, tourniquet, quick clot bandages. So basically, she's got herself a individual first aid kit or an IFAC. She's got rehydration salts, flashlight, fire starter, and yeah, they do definitely come in handy. So yeah, just your everyday carry. It should be individual for every person. It could just be your wallet. I recommend you have in your wallet, or your purse for the ladies, and whatever that you feel necessary in that purse. But behind me, I've got my 2 kits. I did from the last video. I did increase my bag, or change the bag, because after running around with that bag that I did have in the last video, it wasn't very comfortable. So I reverted back to one of my old bags. It's slightly larger, but I don't use that whole space. But I call this kind of a quick bag. Hey, Robin, this is a quick bag. This is lightweight. This has got basically the essentials in it that if I need to just get out and go and move quickly, but have the essentials, that's in this bag. This is more of my longer term survival kit, get home bag that's got more long-term items. However, everything in this bag will fit in this bag. So if I'm in my vehicle and I need to go and I have time to grab both bags, I'm going to throw this one on my back because it's the heaviest, and I'm going to carry this one by hand until I get someplace where I can transfer everything from this bag into this bag. It will all fit. All right. I'm going to start on a smaller bag that's got the essentials in it. And I'm just going to burn through it real fast so that we try to get this done in 28 minutes. I could probably spend 2 or 3 hours on this, but I'm not going to. So this typically is not in my bags, but I will talk about this real quick. This hat did come in handy during the Black Forest fires and the Waldo Canyon fires with all the smoke in the air. There were times when it was very smoky and it was hard to breathe. So I had this. If you're dealing with times of social unrest, tear gas, whatever, I'm not out trying to start problems. This is to basically be able to breathe. I'm not out there rioting and throwing Molotov cocktails or anything. This is for me to get the hell out of the way from people that are inciting riots and the cops are shooting tear gas at them. If I just happen to be in a bad place at that time, I would have this somewhere in my vehicle. All right, moving on. I recommend, having a bag that you feel comfortable with. Not everybody's going to want these tactical bags. You can have it's probably best if you're in a city that doesn't have a lot of military personnel to have a covert bag, something that looks like a hiking backpack or, your standard hikers are going to wear, or a school bag that kids are wear. However, in Colorado Springs, Colorado area, we have 6 military bases. It's very common to see people with tactical backpacks. So I blend in with everybody else, even though this is tactical looking.
And if people want to do more research on that, look into the concept of a gray man.
Right.
Essentially, you're trying to be as nondescript, as unmemorable as possible. You don't want anything that sticks out, that draws attention to you. You just want to blend in and fade away into the background and just pass right on by.
Yeah, at 511 Tactical makes a bunch of covert backpacks that are tactical in style, but by looking at them, you wouldn't know. Just get a backpack that you're comfortable with. I do recommend you getting backpacks. It's probably one of the big reasons I reverted to this one. It doesn't have a great waist belt, but it does have a waist belt on it and comfortable padded straps. This is a Max Expedition pack. These are quite pricey because they're just solid gear and they have very good zippers on them. But I'll burn through this. When you're putting together a kit, you want to think of your core priorities. Last time we're on, Matt mentioned the survival rule of 3s. You need to take, man can survive 3 minutes without air. That's going to be your first aid kits or trauma kits. Man can survive 3 hours exposed to the elements or without shelter. That's going to be your clothing, your poncho, your tarp, your tent, whatever. Man can survive 3 days without water. So you need some way to procure or purify water and hold water, transport water, and man can survive for 3 weeks without food. So you should have some sort of food, nutrients, or ways to procure food, hunt, fish, whatever. Also, if any of you have ever not eaten for a certain amount of time, I've gone 5 days without eating. I tell you, I've got a high metabolism. After 1 day, I'm not a happy camper. You're not going to want to be around me after 1 day. So I do carry extra nutrients so that I'm not grumpy. But I just, I burn through calories. So I'm going to tire faster than most people. And when you're tired and you're hungry, you're going to make poor decisions. So you should have some sort of food. Even though you can survive 21 days or longer without food, why would you want to? Plus you're going to be making bad decisions. You're going to end up getting hurt. So yeah, it sucks. Well, did you say something else?
No, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, it's. I mean, you can live without food. Doesn't mean it's fun. So,
right.
But food is not super high on the priorities. Depending on. Well, you need to try to plan or figure out what you're trying to plan for, and that will dictate what kind of gear you're taking. The weather conditions, the type of things you're trying to avoid. Food. Don't bring food. What kind of food? How much food? So that's all. That's personal preference.
All right, so I'm going to burn through these items again. No particular order. I'm just reaching in my bag and pulling everything out. First thing I pull out is a rain poncho. I do prefer the military rain ponchos because A, I can camouflage myself. B, they do tend to be, it's one of these things that military grade is not always the best, to be quite honest with you. But their rain ponchos tend to be pretty sturdy. Plus, they have grommets in them. This is a knockoff military poncho. My good military poncho walked away, but they do have grommets on them, and it's dual purpose. I can build a shelter out of this, and I can use it for rain, and I can also use it for camouflage if I need to drop my kit. So is that a real military poncho?
Yeah, and this one, it also has button snaps,
right.
So you can actually snap the sleeves and stuff down, or you can pop them off if you want.
But typically military rain ponchos are larger than your standard poncho that you're going to get at any hardware store, hunting supply store, anywhere else out there. They just have bigger, larger ponchos.
Yeah, mine's probably about 6 foot by 5 foot, probably.
Yeah, they are a thicker material. All right, so Becca asked about opinion on survival pellets that provide minimal nutrition. Honestly, I've got no experience with those. Matt, have you ever dealt with survival pellets?
No, I've not.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, you'd want something that has, I guess, depending on what that's trying to do. If it's like a SeaTac ration, we're trying to pack as many calories as possible into as small of a package as possible. I mean, it's not going to fill your stomach up, but as long as you're getting the nutrients and things like that, and the vitamins and the minerals and all that, I mean, you may be getting hungry and going hungry, but at least you're getting some nutrients in there versus something that like just fills your stomach and makes you feel less hungry, may not provide you with things you actually need, good fuel.
Becca, you're on my friends list. Go ahead and shoot me a text to remind me, and I'll actually go out and buy some, and we'll put those survival pellets to the test. I'll make Matt survive for about a month with just eating survival pellets. How's that, Matt? Sound like a good idea to you?
I knew you kept me around for a reason. So.
All right, so my number one tool, I mentioned it earlier, is my knife. You do want to have a quality knife. This is a Benchmade Bushcrafter. This was a gift for my wife, so it's got some sentimental value. But full tang, you see, it's got metal from the tip of the blade to the very end. This knife costs about $200. Some people love this knife, some people hate it. You're not going to know about whether you like a knife or not until you get out and use it. What I don't like about this knife is I can't get Matt to sharpen it for me.
Yeah, I know what my opinion is on that. I don't ever use that knife, but I don't particularly care for it because I've been sharpened.
Yeah, very hard steel. If you keep it sharpened, it's fine. But if you kind of lax like I do every once in a while or most of the time, very difficult knife to sharpen. So I recommend you getting a knife that's easier to sharpen. But once this guy is sharp, it does hold an edge for quite a while. But I've got a custom made. Go ahead.
It's easier to maintain an edge than have to put an edge back on. So that goes for all knives. Keep them tuned up. You don't have to go through the trouble of putting a good edge back on it. So
Matt's got a Mora Garber knife that costs, depending on the sales, between $60 and like $120. Very good knife to have. Fairly inexpensive for a quality blade. His is also full tang.
It is full tang.
So you can't tell holding it up like this. You can't see the metal all the way through. Hold that up sideways like mine, Matt. Look up. Yeah. All right, so you can't see the metal all the way through, but it is in fact full tang. But I do have a custom-made sheath. This is Kydex. This was made by a friend of mine, Matt Tate. I did some training with him, but it's got a ferro rod holder on it. So every my knives have a fire striker on it. So as long as I have my knife with me, I have the ability to start a fire. Oh, I just caught my desk on fire. And then I like the belt clip on it because I can attach this to my belt, but I can also make this so it attaches directly to my MOLLE on my tactical pack. This is my number one tool. If I were to take one thing out in the woods with me, it would be my knife. You have anything to add on knives there, Matt?
No, I mean, just like you were saying, I mean, really the biggest thing about knives is you can spend as much money on a knife as you want. I mean, you can spend thousands of dollars on a knife if you really wanted to, custom forge with your initials etched on it and everything else. But the biggest thing about a knife is how comfortable is it in your hand.
Right.
And that's what you need to focus on. So get your hands on knives, and if you can go to a store that's got them, take them out, play with them safely, if possible,
And
and just get a feeling for it. Because if a knife doesn't feel good to use, you're not going to use it, and you're not going to train with it. You're not going to get good with it. So
most people that come out to my classes, they come out with a Mora Bushcrafter to test it out. It is a smaller knife. It is good for whittling, small bushcrafting. But when you start getting
they're
big
a solid
things,
knife, super
great
cheap,
knife.
just not full tang. That's
Yeah,
really
they're
the only
3/4.
drawback. They're not full tang.
If you do take any of my classes and you're not sure what knife to bring, I recommend getting the Mora Bushcrafter. And when you're out there, I basically let you use my knives so that you can find one. See if you can find one.
Or you
break.
can always go with the big boy.
Right. Yeah, we'll get to that here in a little bit. That's a 6, right?
No, this is the Hunglas.
Oh yeah, we'll
Modified,
talk about that here in a little bit.
Yeah.
So my next item is a multi-tool. Most people have the Leatherman Wave. I bought this guy probably about 8 years ago. This is a SOG. I forget what it is. I bought it so long ago. It's the SOG Power Assist. If eventually I will replace this guy, but I have no need to right now. I like to have something that's obviously has pliers, wire cutters, screwdriver, an awl, and a saw, and another blade in it. Whatever else is in it is fine, but those are usually what I go for when I'm trying to find one of these things. Do you have a multi-tool, Matt?
Yeah, I do. I've got a couple of Leathermans laying around, or no, Gerbers actually. I've got a Leatherman Wave, and I've also got a Gerber.
All right.
So I've
you don't
got.
have to. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this is just one I had when I was in the military. This one just happens to be a snub nose. My Wave and the if no one's familiar with it, the Leatherman Wave has an option where you've got all kinds of little tools you can take out. So it's got like flatheads, Phillips heads, Allen wrenches, all kinds of different little things you can do to unscrew or tighten stuff up. So, but yeah, I mean, a pair of pliers plus all the other tools and a way to cut wire is fantastic in any form.
I'm going to do my screen share thing here, just so you guys, the kit that I'm going through, I know the picture's crappy here, but everything that I have in these 2 bags is laid out on these 2 blankets. This smaller one, I know the backpack has changed, but everything that's in my smaller backpack that I'm going to be pulling out now is right here. And then when I get in the second backpack, it's going to be here. Notice, I'm not sure if you can tell or not, but the larger backpack has more shelter in it. It means it's got a lot more clothes in it than this first one does. But all right, flip back here. Okay, so my next item I pull out is my first aid kit. I loosely call it a first aid kit. This is more of a trauma kit. If you go and buy a first aid kit from Walmart, it's going to be complete junk. It's going to say, hey, this is a 900-piece first aid kit, and 897 of those things are going to be little crappy Band-Aids. Make your own first aid kit. I prefer to call it a trauma kit or an IFAC, individual first aid kit, but more so it's a trauma kit. In this first aid kit, I do have everything in here I've been trained to use, so don't get stuff that you don't know how to use. You're just going to end up hurting somebody or kill somebody. But this is a very basic expedient kit. I've got my nitro gloves. I've got the OPA, or oral phalangeal airway. This is to, if somebody's choking on their tongue while they're unconscious, I can open up their airway with this.
Yeah, if you don't know how to use those, don't invest in them, because you're trying to administer those, you might get bit. People are not going to like you for using those on them, but if you know how to use them, they're a very good tool.
Since last time I was on here, I did resupply my CPR mask. I've got some gauze, and I do have 2 Band-Aids in here for kids, and I've got a SWAT tourniquet and some tape in here. That's it. That's all I carry in that little first aid kit, trauma kit. That's for very major emergencies. And I can use other stuff in this bag to improvise. That's what wilderness first responders are all about, is improvising when you don't have the proper medical tools.
Yep.
My next item in here that I've got is my shamog, or basically it's a large cotton scarf. You probably have all seen these in the movies. These are, some people will call them tactical, but these do serve a very good purpose if you know all the uses for them. But primarily, you're just going to use it for, cover, shelter. You can use it as a head wrap. You can cover your head for both hot or cold. This is the only piece of clothing, if you will, that's in my kit that is cotton. Everything else is either going to be wool or poly. The reason I don't like cotton is because it absorbs water. In the desert, cotton's fine. Out here in the mountains, when it's cold and you can freeze to death, cotton's not so good. I did say desert. The desert does get cold at night. Don't let that fool you. You can get hypothermic in the desert, so beware of cotton even in the desert. But during the hot summer days in the desert, cotton's going to save your life. But I can collect water with this. I can use this as a tourniquet. I can use this as a bandage. I can use it as a head wrap.
Carry firewood.
Carry supplies. Filter water, or not necessarily. I guess pre-filter water with it. A lot of uses for So a lot of uses for the shamag or scarf. We'll go a little bit. Next thing is paracord. I typically carry 50 feet in this pack and 100 feet in the other pack at least. This real paracord has 7 strands inside. It's called 550 cord because it'll hold 550 pounds roughly. It's rope basically, but you can take out the intertwines of it and you can use that intertwines for traps and fishing. But yeah, Matt's holding that up. It's kind of hard to see, but it's got 7 strands on the inside, and each of those will hold a certain amount of weight. I think
focus. There we go.
Like 45 pounds or something like that. If you buy rope, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, but this is kind of a gimmicky thing. They call it like fire cord or tinder cord. That little red one there is actually like a tinder you can pull out. It's a waxed natural thread of some kind. You can pull out and light it with a fire. Kind of gimmicky. Once you get good with a ferro rod, there's not really any reason to go with that, I wouldn't think.
Right.
But they also make are you going to cover like the Titan Survivor cord stuff or no?
No, not really. I mean, there's that Titan Survivor cord that a lot of people are buying now. It's got brass wire in it, thin brass wire. It's got like 100-pound test fish line. It's got that fire cord in it, and then it's got this 7 strands. That thing will probably hold 1,000 pounds. 100-pound fishing test line has 0 use for fishing purposes in Colorado. You're not going to need 100-pound test. If it was 10-pound test, it'd probably be more practical for me. For the amount of money you pay for that Titan cord, I don't know if it's worth it, but a lot of people like it. A lot of people use it, to each their own. Probably the best thing in it is maybe the copper wire. I don't know.
And my thing is if you want okay, I need 2 foot of copper wire. Well, you have to cut 2 foot of your cord off. And
right.
So that's my thing. I'd rather carry individual spools to where I can access it without having to cut my cordage up to get X amount of length of whatever else I'm trying to get out of it. And maybe that stuff is easier to strip out of it in longer sections. I don't know. I've never really messed with it. But real quick, too, another option if people, for people that don't necessarily want to go with the paracord, is tarred bank line. This comes in many different sizes. It's got a lot of good strength to it. You can technically carry more footage per size because it's a thinner diameter than your paracord. I think this is number 36. I forget which way it goes, but you could take this apart into individual strands too. But it's just another option that you can look at. Tarred bank line. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, it's fairly inexpensive. All right, next thing I'm going to go to, I've got a little mini kit here, survival kit. It's got I bought this, so I just threw it in here, but this is an SA pocket survival kit. This is not a standalone kit. If you have this and you think you're going to survive on this without any training, you're sorely mistaken. There's no shelter in this kit. It does have a signal mirror. There's a good signal mirror here. There's a fire starter. There's a little bit of rope. I think there's a little fishing kit. So very basic survival kit. If I needed to lose weight, this would be the first thing I would throw out. So that's just kind of a supplemental kit. But you can make your own kits for the fraction of the price. This is probably about 35 to 40 bucks. It looks like Matt's got something similar.
Yeah, there's that picture of that tin I sent you, and I've kind of got some stuff loaded in there. But I mean, granted, it is quite a bit bigger than an Altoids tin. but you can actually fit some good stuff in there. So I've got various types of brass wire. I've got way more cordage. I went with bank line, the heavier bank line. I've got 2 Mylar blankets with a couple Ranger bands in there. I've got a multi-tool. This whole thing, and I've been meaning to bring that over for you. We're going to eventually do a store-bought Tinder versus homemade variations of that. This is a variation of that pyro putty that they sell.
Right.
It's just a bunch of waxed cotton balls, wax and Vaseline. I even added some dye to make it kind of matchy. And if you drop a chunk on the snow, but you can also actually you can pull a lot of this out, start your fire if you want, or you can essentially just light that whole sucker like a wick and have a little miniature heat source, because it will eventually spread across the top. But you can actually have essentially like a miniature campfire in a can with it. I've got my knot cards in there. I've got a ferro rod. I've got sharpening diamond sharpening stones to keep the tools prepped up. So I mean, you can carry a hell of a lot more, and it's way more useful than an Altoids tin size. It's just not necessarily pocket sized.
Right.
So.
All right. Next thing, I do have a survival fishing kit. I have added a few things to this, but basically it's just going to be your fishing line, your fishing hooks, some stinkers, and just a very, very basic fishing kit. So, wrong way. It's not going to focus, but there's a little fishing kit. I also have a couple of these pocket survival cards.
Yep.
You see that? These things are really kind of cool. It's got some fishing lures on it. It's a couple different fishing hooks and a saw. I don't really know what you're going to use the saw for, but I have this for the fishing hooks. And then I finally found the other one that I had lost in the last video. But this one has got, flip it over this way, that'll help. It's got an arrowhead, or a couple different spearheads on it. So one for fishing, one for birds or small animals. It's got some trap locks on it. That's what these things are right here. Trapping locks for snares. It's got some extra fishing hooks, another saw, and I'm not quite sure what the other little pieces on this side for that saw, but there's actually, I think there's some little tiny sewing needles in there, but this is a good little thing. These cost, I don't know, like $8, I think, but they're kind of cool.
They've got variations. They've got like lock picking. They've got a medical one. They've got the fishing and ones. And there's other companies too. Those ones are by Ready Man Survival. There's another company called, I think, like Grim Survival. They make some different variations of stuff.
Yeah, Grim. I've seen Grim. They have some pretty cool stuff. I've not really shopped a lot with them, but okay. Before this real quick, I mean, it's got a fishing, these multiple ones got a fishing survival kit, a medical survival kit, a hostage escape, basically lock picks, and then the wilderness survival. This one's the wilderness survival kit. And this one is the fisherman survival kit. The hooks keep getting stuck in my finger because they're so sharp. Okay.
Yeah, they are sharp. Don't doubt them. They are very sharp. And then real quick, I've got, if people are interested, looking up fishing yo-yos. That's one option. Yeah. You've also got speed hooks. I've not used any of these yet, but a lot of people do use the yo-yos down south for like catfish and stuff. You can also use them on land for small animals. Same thing with the military speed hook. That is what they include in military survival kits, apparently standard issue. So you can
those things are pretty cool. We're gonna have to take them out and use them. We got a question from Ginger real fast. You could probably speak to this the best. What gauge brass wire do you recommend?
Well, it pretty much completely depends on what size animal you're trying to catch. For something like this, for like a bug out bag or a get home bag, I mean, you're not trying to catch anything big. You're not going to be going for coyote or raccoon or anything like that. You're going to be going for like squirrel and rabbits. So there's quite possibly better answers, but I personally go with like 20 to 22 gauge brass wire. That seems to be a pretty in between general use. It's not too heavy. It's not too thick. But that would be what I would go with. And also, it's good for gear repair. You can repair gear and stuff with it, wire stuff back together. So it is a multi-use item. But that's what I would go for, and I would focus on small animals.
Ginger, we do have this SA pocket survival kit. We do have a YouTube video out there about that, and we do discuss the brass wire that's in there. You could watch that video and see the best way to set up a snare with this. I've been meaning to do a survival snare video with that same brass wire standalone without the rest of the kit items. I don't think I put it out there yet. So go look for that video or the SA survival, pocket survival kit, or just wait and we'll eventually put one out there with just the standard, just the brass wire. Something else I got.
Probably a better one. It'll be dedicated.
Right.
So
I do carry some extra matches. I hardly ever use matches, but it never hurts to have a backup. And then this is some of that. This is like cotton rope that I can use as a fire starter. I hardly ever use this stuff either, but I've got it just in case. My go-to is cotton ball and Vaseline. I also have a Mylar blanket. Use those big shiny silver blankets. These are not the end-all be-all of survival blankets or survival shelters. They do serve a purpose, but they're not going to build, make you the best shelter. You do need to wrap these around you to stay warm. You can put them in your shelters to reflect heat back on you. But what I really like about these is if I fold this out, this thing is 84 inches by 52 inches. That's what, like 7 feet by 5 feet or something like that. I can't math right now. Anyways, that makes one hell of a mirror to reflect sunlight, a signal mirror. And these usually are one-time use. Once you open them up, they do tend to rip, and you'll never get it to fit back into.
Good luck getting it folded up and put it back in the bag that size.
But it's not a bad thing as an emergency blanket. Just know this should be your backup to probably your backup.
And I will say on those, be careful how closely you wrap them around you, because if you wrap them too tightly, your body is always sweating and perspiring. You're always like losing moisture. So if you pull them too close, it's gonna be like, the whole thing in high school, like if you wrapped up in plastic to sweat to cut weight, you will start to sweat if you're too tightly wrapped in those. And I'm assuming you're trying to get warm, so you start to get wet, and that completely counteracts what you've been trying to do. So have those as close to your body as possible while not sweating and perspiring and preventing your body from breathing. You don't want to get wet and cold.
Right.
So,
and last thing in that little kit, and actually I need to move this to my first aid kit probably, is a pen. I don't have a notepad in my first aid kit, but I don't really need one if I'm going to go lightweight, because I have the back of the gauze wrapper, the packaging for the gauze. I can write on that if I need to take notes about my patient or whatever. But that's it in that little mini kit. Moving on. Next thing I have that I grabbed, I've got a winter hat, a nice fleece hat. If you want to support me, you like the videos, buy yourself a hat that goes, helps me out. Also t-shirts, we have t-shirts. If you like the free videos, these free sessions, be nice to be able to say, hey, I got a t-shirt from that weird guy that I'm watching on TV or on the computer. But anyways, I also got a pair of gloves. During the summer, I might change my winter gloves to work gloves. Next thing I have in here, I do have, this is a War Bonnet. War Bonnet Outdoors is the company. This is a black diamond overquilt. So this is basically a small sleeping bag, more or less. So I have a way to keep warm. Shelter is very important. Remember, you have 3 hours to die exposed to the elements if you can't stay warm. Next thing I have is a clean canteen. This one's well used. This is single walled, meaning it's single wall. There's no insulation inside of it. It's just, I can throw it in the fire and I can boil water in this and I can cook in it. And it's not going to blow up on me. If you have a double walled canteen and you put it in the fire, you're either going to ruin it or it's going to explode on you. But what you do is you take this off, fill it full of water, sit it on the fire. Once the water's boiling, you pull it out. Now you can make your stew or whatever, or you can have this full of hot water, seal it nice and tight, wrap it with your shemagh. Not boiling. Yeah, make sure that the lid cools, or the metal cools down before you put that lid on, because otherwise it's going to melt that lid or the seal on it. But now I wrap this in my hot water bottle in my shemagh or a wool sock or whatever. Now I basically got a hot water bottle that I can take to bed with me and keep me nice and warm. And this will stay hot until, if I go to bed at 9 o'clock at night, this will stay hot until about 4 o'clock in the morning, where it loses its heat, but it helps keep you warm only. long.
Yeah, I think yours was the 32 ounce, right? That's when you like to carry. I personally, just
Yes.
personal preference. Yeah, I like the 64. It's bigger, but that also can be a downside. It's not as easy to pack. So
Right.
personal preference, but yeah.
So that water bottle will, you can purify water. You boil water for 3 minutes and it is killed all bacteria and viruses. And it's probably still going to have floaties in the water, but at least it's going to be safe to drink. To get rid of the floaties, I carry a Sawyer mini water filter. What's up?
Real quick before we go on too far from the bottles, do you have a toggle video on how to get it out without burning yourself? Or are you gonna?
Yeah, I'm not going to run that. But yeah, there is a video out there somewhere about me pulling out of it, pulling it
Right,
out of
no,
the
I
fire.
wasn't saying, I'm just saying for reference. You can make a little toggle on a string, and yeah, look for it on the channel, and he's got one out there.
Sawyer Mini is my go-to for water filters. This will filter, I think these little minis will filter 100,000 gallons of water. That's why I like it. The Life Straws, I think do 1,000 gallons, but they're very easy to use. You fill your dirty water, your gray water in here, and then you squeeze it gently out and it flows out and it comes out pretty quick. The failure point on this, I'll take this water filter off so you can see. The failure point on these, got to turn this right, that's kind of hard to do, is right here where the seam of the bag hits the edge of this plastic. If you squeeze too hard, these things will rupture right here and you're going to squirt dirty water down the side of your filter and you could cross-contaminate. So when you're using these and you're squeezing water out of them, squeeze gently so you don't break the bag. Is that the Sawyer? That's the Sawyer squeeze?
Squeeze. Yeah, just for reference, he has the Sawyer Mini, which I also have, and this is just a step up. This is the Sawyer Squeeze, not the Sawyer Mini. So it just filters a bit faster. I don't know what these are rated for total.
I think 500,000, might be 1 million gallons for those. But you do have to back flush these. But I would say 500,000. But you do have to back flush these to clear out any sediment. But you do, if you're out in cold weather, don't just leave these in your pack. Carry them close to your body so that this doesn't freeze. If they freeze, they're ruined.
If they've gotten wet, dry, they're okay. But once you use them and there's water in there, because they're made up of little microscopic straws, if the water freezes inside the straws, it can damage the filter and it may no longer be effective. So yeah, once you've used them and got water in them, keep them warm. Don't let them freeze.
All right. Also in this pack, extra pair of wool socks. Wool socks are going to be way better than cotton out here. Next thing, I've got a Space Saver cup. This, on my large pack, this one back here, it'll fit in the bottle holder I have, but it fits right over top of there. So I basically have, sorry, I was just reading Becca's comment, but yeah, I can keep this in the same location. So yeah, the Sawyer, I think the Sawyer Mini, like
the Mini is 100,000.
Yeah, but the Sawyer Squeeze is 500,000 gallons. Yeah, and then the Life Straw is 250 gallons. I also have another backup battery for my cell phone. Got a glow stick. This is a 12-hour glow stick if you want to save your batteries on your flashlights. This will last through the night. And I can also use that potentially for signaling. Next thing I have is my navigation kit. I pulled this out earlier, but a map. So wherever you're at, wherever you're going to be going, you should have a map to that location. Inside of my navigation kit, you see right off the bat, I have pace count beads or ranger beads, whatever you want to call them. I have a video out here on to use those also. I have my Garmin. I'll pull that out here in a second. I've got a lens addict compass. Basically, these are military style compass. If you don't know how to navigate properly, we do have a very intensive 3-day navigation class this coming summer. Check that out. But whether you use a navigation or a lens addict compass or an orienteering compass, whichever you use is fine. Just know how to use it properly. There is a notepad in here with it. And then, so I can mark coordinates, and then a protractor. So you really, without a protractor and a compass, and using a map isn't always efficient. And then I have a pencil in there also, small pencil. And then, of course, that is low tech. A compass is considered low tech. as opposed to no tech, you know, looking at the sun, feeling the heat on the rocks. That's no tech. And then this is high tech, my Garmin. You know, this makes life easier so long as you know how to use it. But know that these do fail, batteries do fail, so you need to have a backup. All right. Do you have anything to add real quick, Matt?
No, yeah, I mean, definitely take land nav classes if you don't know how to already. That kind of blew my mind. Where I was able to track down like five-gallon buckets within like what was it, like a 3 or 4 square mile area, just based off of grid coordinates. When I was done with that class last year,
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, great class. 3 days, you're going to learn a lot in navigation. I've got another little knife that I use. It's in my kit. Communication. So, you know, everybody in the family's got one of these. So if I'm out and I'm heading back towards the house, or maybe they're with me, we can talk to each other if we get separated. Know what your primary channel is for your family. You know, give them whatever channel. This one I think has got like 12 channels. So everybody should know what channel you're talking on, and then have a backup channel. This bag is almost empty. And knock myself out here. Medication. I've got ibuprofen. Fix this here real quick. And Benadryl. It's great for, you know, allergies, anaphylactic shock, things like that. It's not. I mean, it's not ideal if somebody needs an EpiPen. This isn't going to be ideal, but it might slow down any reaction that they're having. And then, of course, my prescriptions. You know, any prescription that you need to have, you should have extras in your bag. And then I've got another little fire kit. I've got a lighter. I hardly ever use lighters. My primary is going to be my ferro rod, but I got cotton balls and Vaseline. That's my primary fire starter. That's my go-to. If I'm not using natural materials, this is great for man-made stuff. Very easy to make, very inexpensive. And then my emergency fire starter. This is an egg carton with paraffin wax in here and a cotton ball wrapped in aluminum foil. I'll just open it up here real quick. So you see egg carton, the shreds of egg carton torn up with paraffin wax on it. Cotton ball on top. Once it's open, I set it in this cup, light that on fire. This will burn for about 30 minutes. It's a long time to burn to get other kindling started. I've got a video on that too, emergency fire starter video. Check it out. This is the back flush thing for the Sawyer water filter. So this is what I'm going to use.
It's a big ass syringe.
Yeah, it's a big syringe. You probably can't see it, but I keep it in the package. I've got another one. This is just one that I haven't opened yet because I could potentially use that for irrigating wounds. So this one's going to stay in the package until I absolutely need it. And then food. I got, you know, Clip bars and the RX bars and Lara bars. You know, anything that's got high calories. I got a lot of food. I like to eat. I don't like to be hungry.
Try to stay away from the junky stuff that's like hollow calories and, you know, high sugar content and stuff like that.
Let's see what else do I got in here. I got some extra batteries. You all know what batteries look like. I got AA's and AAA batteries in here. And then finally, this is on my waist pouch right up front. I've got a headlamp. This one has got red light and a bright white light. The red light is if you don't want to blind people with you. Also, red light is harder to see from a distance, which is if you want to be stealthy, you don't want people to know where you're at, you're going to use a red light. And then also have another little flashlight, handheld. So I think that's it for this pack. So this is my fast pack if I need to get up and move and be out of there quickly. It's got the essentials in it. All right. So we'll move on to the next pack, the bigger pack. You can see it right attached to the outside. I've got a larger first aid kit. I should say a trauma kit. I'm not going to go through the intricate details of this trauma kit. I don't want people going out and buying stuff that they're not trained on. If you're going to get yourself a proper trauma kit, go get some medical training. There are tourniquets in here and more bandages and tape and some other stuff that I'm not going to talk about.
Trying to save someone's life is not when you want to be reading the instructions.
Right. So there you go. There's your trauma kit. Get a good one, build it yourself, or buy one that's been made by somebody with some experience. Learn how to use everything that's in here. Okay, next thing Matt was talking about earlier, I have a very large knife. This is the SA Hunglis or Junglis, however you want to pronounce it. This is, how big is that blade? Like 47 feet long or something like that. I use a machete in place of a hatchet. That's a personal preference. I do not carry a hatchet or an axe. To each their own. If you carry an axe, great, good on you. That's your choice. It's just what I prefer over an axe. Now, I would. Go ahead.
No, I mean these are, you can get smaller stuff, but yeah, these are not necessarily what I would consider for a bug out bag. This would be more like an inch bag, which is I'm never coming home. So you just have to strike out and you're taking off. But that you can get smaller options. This particular one is by CRKT. This is a little tactical little hatchet they've got.
Now I would take a 3/4 or a full size axe over a machete, but it's not going to go in my kit. And also I do have, as you see, I have a ferro rod attached to my large knife, and it does have some shot cord on it that keeps it from falling out. Just a quick, drop here. This sheath was custom made by a friend of mine. He was on earlier. RJ, if you're looking for a good custom leather sheath, let me know and I can hook you up with a guy that makes nice sheaths.
It comes standard with the Molly, but the leather sheath is definitely an upgrade. So, but then real quick too, also Kydex. An option, Tomahawk, Kydex. Sorry, yeah, Kydex. For an option as well, I mean, you can consider Tomahawk. You can replace the handle quite easily without having to carve an axe handle, and also too, you can pop the whole head of your Tomahawk off and use that for finer work if you're skinning an animal or doing other things. It's just another option to look into. It's not necessarily for everybody, but it is an option.
Right. Yeah, I do have a Tomahawk. It's just not on my kit. Yeah, there's RJ right there. If you guys, he makes great leather sheaths. You see him in the chat, possibly. You're looking for something, hit him up. And then I do have another full-size bushcraft knife in here. This is the Bark River Aurora, I believe, is the name of it. Great knife. This is probably going to become my primary knife if I ever break my Benchmade Bushcrafter. Great knife to have. You see, I do have carabiners on my bag. I carry about 5 of those. I use those for my sleep system, my hammock. So I have extras, but whatever I might need carabiners for. Let's go through this little pouch. There's nothing in there. Here's a nice new clean canteen. I threw this in here just so you guys could see what a pretty shiny clean canteen looks like. These are pretty pricey. I think they're like $29. You can buy knockoffs, but I've never had one of these fail me, so I like them. You got something, Matt?
No, I was saying you can sometimes, like, I get mine in Sportsman's Warehouse. Usually they'll be like randomly having a sale, and I can get these big ones that are normally like 40-some bucks. I can get them for like $20. But yeah, so if you shop around, you can find a cheaper option. But yeah, this is also clean canteen. I've never really used other options other than like the one that came with the Canterbury cook kit. But that's perfectly functional. It's just a smaller one. I prefer the bigger bottles, just personal preference.
I do have another water filter, Sawyer Mini, in here. I would probably never use these except for an extreme emergency, but I do have some germicidal tablets. The reason I don't like these, they taste bad to begin with. Second, if they're strong enough to kill the nasties in the water, they're also possibly could kill the good stuff in your gut. So be aware of using this. Don't use them too much, otherwise it could make you sick or ultimately kill you. These do also have an expiration date, and these ones may even be expired. Yeah.
Although, and if
Yeah,
I'm not mistaken,
no
I
date
don't
on.
remember what Mark said, but there is an option. I mean, you could make that a multi-use item to where, because like certain ones they're like bleach based, other ones are iodine based. I
Right.
think you can use the iodine based ones as a disinfectant for first aid. So you could pop
Oh, yeah.
that in your first aid kit and have a multifunction item. So you can disinfect a wound or whatever, and worst case
Absolutely.
scenario, disinfect the water to drink. So
Yeah.
it is
So
an
this would
option, but
probably be a
I'm with
good
Jason.
thing to put in your
I
med
don't.
kit.
Yeah, I'm with Jason. I don't like the chemical stuff. I avoid chemical sterilizers if at all possible.
I also do have some earplugs. These are obviously, these are just cheapies, but if you do have a firearm, you can use that for safety. But I found after spending 14 days in the jungle, these were very important for sleeping. There's no way I could have slept in the jungle without being able to block out the racket that happens in a jungle. It's crazy how loud it is. All right. But yeah, it will help you for sleeping at night if there's too much noise. But I do like to be able to hear at night, but these just block out just enough sound to make it so it's not overbearing. On the top of this bag, I do have a whoopee. So basically a big blanket. It's a military blanket. For as thin and as lightweight it is, it's super warm, and it's great. It's poncho liner, is another name for it, but all the guys in the military call it a whoopee. Love that.
You know why
thing.
they call it a whoopee?
No idea. Tell me.
Because well, at least what I've heard, because you would be cold without it.
But
Hey.
The most important survival tool to survive the COVID-19 apocalypse right here. Yeah, it's a high commodity. Somebody's probably gonna raid my door. Yeah, good. Good thing my front door is locked. So yeah, some toiletries. Since we're on that, I do have a hygiene kit. There's soap in here, toothbrush, toothpaste, dental floss, hand wipes, hand sanitizer, another commodity for the COVID-19. There's bug spray in here. There's some thread like for sewing. But yeah, a hygiene kit. Hygiene's very important when you're out surviving. If you don't have a hygiene kit, you get sick from being unsanitary.
Yep, I've got a repair kit myself. All kinds of different threads and needles and good stuff.
Yeah, one of my little survival kits in here later has got some needle and thread in it. I do have a repair kit somewhere, but I can't find it. It's one of those items that's MIA. I do have some electrical tape for whatever I might need electrical tape for. I've got a little kit here that's got knot cards in it. So it's got like 12 different knots. I'm not the best at knots. I know probably more than I realize, but there are knots in here that are a little bit more difficult to tie. So if you're not a great knot person, get these knot cards, and they only cost a few bucks a piece. I do have some camouflage paint for my face in case I don't want to be seen.
Got to go Rambo.
Yeah. And then there's a little, this is basically a sear kit, survive, evade, resist, escape, but it's just a little saw and a razor. So if I could hide it. And if I got captured, I can cut my bonds, cut zip ties, cut rope, whatever with it. But what I don't like about this, if this is supposed to be a sear kit, why is it bright freaking orange? It's supposed to be able to hide it. All right.
You're not supposed to ask questions.
Yeah, just buy it. Give me your money. More paracord. Another headlamp. This one is just a bright white light. It doesn't have the red light on it, but this one is USB chargeable, so I could charge it with my backup battery for my phone, and I wouldn't be using my other stuff. One thing I don't have in this kit right now that I need to is a solar charger. I'm basically saving some money, so I could buy a smaller, compact one. The one that I do have now is huge. Zip ties, Robin. I do have a saw. This is a junk saw because I cannot find where I last put my silky saw. You have your silky?
I have my small ones. I got my big silky. I've got one of my Coronas. But yeah, this is a bit much to put in a small bag, but this thing almost replaces a chainsaw.
Yeah. So good
Sounds
saws.
interesting.
Silky makes a good saw. Baco makes a good saw. I think that's Bahko. Baco.
Yeah,
I
the
think it's the
Laplander
Baco
is the normal.
Laplander, right?
Yep.
Corona, Baco, Silky. There's one more. I can't think of it. If you have one of those wicked tree saws, they really suck for bushcrafting. Just be honest with you. Don't buy one of those. I hate them things. I do have a defensive knife. This is a tactical skinner, so it's a skinning knife, but I can use it for self-defense. You don't need a big blade for self-defense. Typically, that's going to be strapped to the outside of my pack right here. A lot of guys like to have the what's the Marine blade? Somebody, come on. The K-bar.
K-bar.
Thank you. Yeah. So a lot of guys like the K-bar knives.
I've heard a lot of stories about for defensive and for fighting, okay, sure, but for like a general purpose, I've heard K-bars can break when you try to baton them and stuff. So not my first pick for a survival knife, but like self-defense or something, sure.
I do have less than lethal if I needed it. This would probably be one of the other things that would be dropped quickly if I needed weight, because if I have to go after somebody, I'm probably not going to go less than lethal. Another pair of gloves, another potentially less than lethal, a monkey fist. This has got a big steel ball in it. I can clobber somebody really well, but what I kind of use this for more is to throw paracord up over a tree limb so I can hoist up my bear bag. This is easy to find if it does come undone from the rope. Another hat, another shamog scarf. I did throw this in here last time because for other people's sakes, signaling. This one does have survival tips on it. I don't necessarily need the survival tips, but it is nice to have something brightly colored if you need to signal. So that's why I threw this in here. Typically, if I'm going to go out in the woods to get away from people, I don't want to be found, so I'm not going to be using bright orange things. But it's never a bad idea to have some sort of signaling device. I do also carry some long underwear. These are the waffle long underwear. Military guys use these typically. Super warm. They got a waffle pattern that traps air in there, keeps you nice and warm.
Again, stay away from cotton if you can help it.
Yeah, that's a poly.
Desert environment.
Yeah, don't use cotton for your long underwear. I have a very large tarp. This is my this is War Bonnet again. This is the Superfly tarp. This is large enough to put my hammock under, but I can make it into basically a tent with this.
It's got doors that close up on both ends. So it's essentially like a floating little pup tent. You could stake it down to the ground if you wanted to and have it be a standalone shelter without the hammock. I really like it. I've got one as well.
Yeah, you could probably put 3 people underneath this tarp with your gear. Well, maybe not with 3 people's gear, but great tarp, great shelter. I mean,
if you're trying to stay warm.
Right. I call big spoon. I got a neck gaiter, and then kind of a head wrap / neck gaiter. Since we're talking about neck gaiters, if it's winter, I am going to have an extra pair of winter boots in my truck, and also some boot gaiters so I don't get snow in my boots. And if it's super cold, I do have these. Also are usually in my truck. Some winter mittens. Mittens are going to keep your hands warmer than regular.
It took me until I was 33 years old to try gaiters, and I cannot believe. I grew up in Alaska, and I cannot believe it took me so long. Like, gaiters are a life-changing invention as far as I'm concerned. They're fantastic. So, and some pants actually have them built in. Like, that's one of the things I like about those, the Fjallraven Vitas, Vita Pros, wherever they are. But they're proud of those pants.
Yeah, for sure.
They're not deep.
I do have a wool sweater in here also. I've got another little cooking pot. This is not super necessary because of the Space Saver Cup and the Clean Canteen, but cooking pots have a lot of different purposes. And this one does have some comfort items in it. I've got some hot sauce. I got some coffee, sugar, cream, I got some M&Ms and some more food bars in here. Nothing wrong with having comfort items, especially in a stressful situation. Has something to help you stay calm or keep your mind right or whatever. Let's see what else.
Like I said in the other video, Morse pots and zebra pots are two other options as well if people want to look into them.
A hydropack water bladder with an inline filter on it. I don't necessarily use those a lot unless I don't come across water often and I need to refill and be able to carry water for long distance.
That's something about those Sawyers as well. The Sawyers can actually be put in line on like a Camelback as well. So if you don't want to try to sit there and squeeze the water out of the bag, you can just stick it in the tube and hook it up, and then that way you can just be sucking water out of your Camelback and have it filtered in process. So, or in line.
Got a spoon. Don't need a knife because I got my knife. Salt. This is great for replacing electrolyte salt and the sugar that's in that other thing. If I'm sweating a lot, do salt plus salt for flavoring. This is probably, you don't even think about it, but I think this is one of the essentials of a survival kit is some salt. This is some thick coarse grain salt. I got another emergency ration food bar. Right here is 2,400 calories. So I could actually probably make this last 3 days if I had to. I'd probably eat it in 1 day, really. I got a trash bag. Multiple uses for trash bags. You can stuff Matt in it, right, Matt? No.
If it's big enough, which isn't much of a stretch.
I could, make a rain poncho. I can make a shelter out of it. I can use it to collect water. Different uses for a trash bag. I could just be nice and pick up trash. Ground cover, stuff like that. Another Mylar blanket. Some more freeze-dried, dehydrated food because I like to eat. Let's see what else I got a sharpening stone so that Matt can sharpen my knife. A pocket survival tin. Again, these are standalone. These are not standalone kits. You're going to need to add, they supplement your kit, but this has got a button compass. I really hate button compasses. They really don't work as well as they should. It's got matches. It's got a razor knife. It's got a sewing kit, which is probably a big reason I keep this. It's got water purification tablets. I probably wouldn't use those. It's got a survival whistle. It's got a fishing kit. It's got utility cord. It's got brass wire, beeswax candles, flint and steel, fire starter tinder tabs, a lensatic Fresnel lens, Band-Aids, butterfly bandages, pocket wire saw, some tie wraps, which I'm assuming are zip ties, Robin, a water bag, survival instructions, pencil, and survival instruction labels. Honestly, I probably need to go through this and eliminate some of the stuff that's in here to save some weight, but it's still on the wrapper, not opened it. So I do have another fishing kit. I do have some redundant items, but having two isn't always bad. There's that saying, one is none, two is one. That's why I have so many knives. Let's see what else do I have. Yep, that's it. So we're done. So like I said before, everything in the first kit will fit in the bag of this second kit. Oh, sorry, I got a crushable hat. Keep the sun off my head. Like that.
Complete the crazy prepper look.
But yeah, that's basically what's in my survival kit / get home bag. Your typical person is probably going to need a little bit more. I could probably go with a little bit less, but I don't like to be uncomfortable. If there are tools in there, then it just makes life easier. Let's see. Let's look at Matt's full kit here. Matt's got a nice clear picture, fortunately, of his. So I'm going to share his photo of what he's got in his kit.
I do have a couple of shortfalls in some spots. Like I've talked with Jason about, like with the trauma packs and stuff like that. Like I need to get a better trauma pack. The little what first aid stuff I have is already in the truck, but I need something more like what he's got. But yeah, so I just kind of I definitely don't carry all of that. Like the multiple, the hatchet, the axe, and the big ass saw. That was all just things where you can kind of swap, trade things in or out based on personal preference. But yeah, so I've got like my sleep system. The kind of turquoisey bag is clothing. So I've got like the long johns. I've got like 2 pair of underwear, 2 pairs of socks, shirts, that kind of stuff. It's in the dry bag, so it stays dry. And then also too, that gives me a container if I'm out and about and I need to put have a dry bag for something else to carry water. We've used dry bags to catch crawdads and carry crawdads around in. So that's kind of a multi-use item. But yeah, that was just items that I do carry a lot. And if anyone asks about the gun, that's just a 22 pistol. It's a Ruger. And first, like I said, for me, I've got more like a I'm not coming home bag, an inch bag, not necessarily a BOB. So I would include that in the inch bag to procure food. Really, you could technically use that for signaling as well, and or scaring off animals by making noise maker. But if depending on the scenario, why you're having to use your kit, using a firearm may be about the last thing you want to do. So again, that is personal preference and situation dependent on what's going on. So, but yeah, so yours is more complete than mine.
Well, I mean, it's what I do. But so you right here, that's his hammock, the Warbonic
Yep.
hammock. This is for his hammock. What is this right here? Is that a
That's the dry bag with the clothes in it.
okay? So you got clothes here, poncho.
Yep.
What's that?
No, that's the water filter.
Water filter.
System.
This is
Yep.
your repair kit, headlamp, carabiners.
Yep.
Is that a fire
Hygiene.
kit?
No, that's hygiene. That's a bar of soap and 2 washcloths.
Okay.
So.
And you got your shimogs. What's this? What's that?
That is a sharpening stone.
Sharpening stone.
That's ammo. Yep.
Is this your first aid kit?
No, that's cook kit. The first aid kit's in the truck.
Okay.
That's
compass.
Yep.
Basic survival items. Or that's your trapping kit.
Yeah, basic survival / trapping. Yeah.
This is your fishing kit. You want to show them? Do you have that?
Yep. Yeah, and so that's kind of just something. I mean, I used that on the 5-day challenge last year. So there are definitely some tweaks I want to make, but this is just PVC pipe. I've got a Ranger band on here, and what I did is I wrapped a bunch of duct tape around. So the duct tape is a multi-use item, but it also is what is supporting all of the fishing line. So I've got a bunch of braided fishing line. Oops. I've got the hook loose here. Don't want to get myself. So it's already got a hook on it. I usually just kind of have that pressed into the duct tape. Sorry, I'm not holding that up to the camera very well here. Let me put that back in there. Okay. So I've got the line here and I've got the hook here. And then I can also unscrew the back here. So this is actually what I fish with. You actually take some of the line off and you can actually cast. So some people call it like a hobo fishing kit. I can actually cast a decent way with this, and I can reel in by wrapping the line around. I keep that on there so I don't lose it. The kit does float if I drop it, but I'd rather not go swimming to get it back. And then what's inside is just a film canister with some power bait on it. I had better luck actually catching like grasshoppers and using grasshoppers for bait. So I may change that out later, but I got a bunch of bobbers. You could make bobbers out in the field, and that was actually something I want to play with that fire starter putty that I'm making, that wax. It does float, so I could probably actually just wrap some line around that for a bobber / signaler. Get that guy out there. I've got a bunch of extra raw hooks of different sizes and formations, treble hooks and single hooks and stuff like that. I'll pick that all up later. I've got some extra line, so I've actually got some mono on there. Not mono, sorry, that's fluorocarbon, because fluorocarbon blends in better, but fluorocarbon monofilament, it's synthetic. And then that little sewing bobbin has got more spider wire on it, which is just a braided line, which is stronger. A couple extra swivels in there. Lead weights. And that's about it. So, yeah. Oh, and then I also did forget, I do actually have some safety pins on there, and I did pack extra safety pins in my repair kit. You can actually attach these to a pole, and having the little round spring eyelet there, not the part that you close up, but if you have that little round eyelet there, You can actually have those facing downwards, and you can run your line through that. You can actually make an impromptu fishing pole with eyelets that allows you to actually be a little bit more precise with placing, where you're doing your fishing. So those are in there as well. So.
Right on. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything. There's that, was that wax? You got wax in there?
Oh, that brown box? Yeah, that's because I've got a pair of Fjällräven pants in my kit.
Oh, okay.
So that wax is, it's waterproofing, so you can wax your pants and all that. You could also, it's pretty thick. It's like paraffin. I think it's paraffin and beeswax. It's a bit thick, but you could also use that as an impromptu lip balm or chapstick if you needed to. You can use it to grease up the slides on a zipper. If your zipper is getting stuck, you can put some wax on it and try to loosen it up that way. So it's also a multi-purpose item. I could maybe even find a stick or a twig or something or a piece of moss to stick in there and make a candle out of it maybe. So.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're done unless you have something else to add.
Not off the top of my head, unless anyone else has got some questions.
All right. Yeah. If you guys have any questions, now's the time to ask. If you are watching this after I close this down, you have any questions, go ahead and shoot out those questions, and I'll do my best to answer them in a timely manner. Otherwise, we are done for the night. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll come up with a new topic here. We'll probably run here in a few days. But again, thanks for joining us. Check us out, thesurvivaluniversity.com. That's got our full schedule for classes if you're interested in classes. Or we post as much as we can online and on YouTube and on Facebook. But again, thanks for joining us. Hope you have a great night. Stay healthy out there. Take care of yourself.
Come here.
And Matt's making
weird
say goodbye noises.
To you. Try to get someone to say goodbye. She has no idea what's going on.
She's being
survival
shy.
dog. Oh yeah. Well, thanks everyone.
All right. Have a great night. Thanks again for joining us.